Chapter 1463. In the five-dimensional universe. In the starry sky, Xian opened his palm. Thousands of feet away, a ray of sword light appeared and a certain space was torn apart. Still sword. With the help of this unparalleled sword, his insta-kill sword had reached his limit. The true limit. This was because insta-kill sword could no longer increase his sword's speed. Although it could no longer increase his speed, it could increase his strength and the power of his sword techniques. In other words, other than reaching the limit of his speed, there was still room for improvement in other areas. At this moment, a lady suddenly appeared not far away from Xian. It was Lan Ruo. Xian looked at Lan Ruo a little surprised. Miss Lan Ruo? Lan Ruo walked to Xian with a serious expression. I have bad news for you. Xian said, Dao faction is going to make a move? Lan Ruo nodded. Not just Dao faction. They made use of Dao faction's resources and connections to gather many experts to head to Dao faction. These people are not to be underestimated. Xian asked, how many? Lan Ruo glanced at Xian. Are you sure you want to know? Xian smiled. Of course. Lan Ruo said, the Dao sect itself has at least 460 consolidation realm experts. Now, including the experts from their vassal forces as well as those who have been tempted by martial arts manuals, there are at least 600 consolidation realm experts in the Dao sect now. Among them, there are many who have no lack of consolidation realm experts. Xian was silent. This lineup was enough to crush the entire five-dimensional universe. Lan Ruo continued, in addition, second brother Dao has personally gone to the Holy Land. This means that the Holy Land should have agreed to make a move. As for the strength of the Holy Land, we can't find anything. Can't find anything, Xian said softly. Seems like I should be more worried about the Holy Land. Lan Ruo looked at Xian. How are you going to deal with Dao faction? Xian smiled. We can only fight. Lan Ruo frowned. Fight head-on. Xian said softly. We definitely can't fight them head-on. Lan Ruo asked, call for help. Xian shook his head. Lan Ruo was a little puzzled. Why didn't you call for help? Xian smiled bitterly. Because I don't know where they are. Lan Ruo was stunned. Are you sure? Xian smiled bitterly. Miss Lan Ruo, do you think I need to lie to you? Lan Ruo said in a low voice. Then you're in a rather bad situation now. Xian looked at Lan Ruo and smiled. Miss Lan Ruo, thank you for reminding me. Lan Ruo shook his head. It's just a small matter. As she said that, she looked at Xian. I don't know what strategy you have, but I want to tell you that if the person behind you doesn't make a move, that door is like a mountain to you, a mountain that you can't overcome. Take care. After saying that, she turned around and disappeared. Where he was, Xian looked at the supreme sword in his hand and chuckled. It's time to taste blood. After saying that, he disappeared. Dao Domain. At this moment, the Dao Domain was unprecedentedly lively because countless consolidation realm experts were rushing over. On this day, a man in black arrived at the Dao Domain. This man in black was naturally Xian. However, at this moment he was dressed in black and looked completely different from before. He wanted to see how the Dao sect was going to deal with him. The moment Xian entered the Dao Domain, the space in front of him suddenly trembled. The next moment an old man appeared in front of Xian. The old man looked at Xian. May I know who you are? Xian was about to speak when a voice sounded from the horizon. I didn't expect the young Master Yi of the fifth dimension to personally come to my Dao sect. What a surprise. After saying that, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Xian. The person who came was Dao Brother Second. And around him, countless experts appeared one after another. All of them were at the consolidation realm. In an instant Xian was directly surrounded. Xian was silent. I'm off to a bad start. However, he didn't understand how the other party found him. In the sky, Dao Brother Second looked at Xian. Xian, you underestimate my Dao sect. Xian nodded. Indeed, I underestimated you. Dao Brother Second looked at Xian. Everyone, kill this person and my Dao sect will fulfill its promise to you immediately. Hearing this, the hundreds of consolidation realm experts present all looked at Xian in unison. Why did they come here? Naturally, it was because they wanted to obtain some of the Dao sect's martial arts manuals. Especially the Dao scriptures of the Dao sect. At this moment someone was about to make a move, But Yi Xian suddenly laughed in the distance. You don't really think that I came alone, do you? Hearing this, those who were about to make a move stopped. They naturally knew about Yi Xian. Now who didn't know that there was a mysterious force behind Yi Xian? In the sky, Dao Brother Second looked at Yi Xian. Are you trying to scare me? Yi Xian smiled. Dao Brother Second, do you think I would come here to die for nothing? Dao Brother Second looked at Yi Xian with a calm expression. Then what are you doing here? Yi Xian was silent. In fact, he really wanted to directly draw his sword and kill this Dao Brother Second. However, he wasn't completely confident. First of all, Dao Brother Second was an expert who surpassed the consolidation realm. Secondly, Dao Brother Second had also cultivated a Dao physique. That Dao physique was very likely to be able to block his sword strike. At this moment, a middle-aged man not far away suddenly laughed. I think that this young Master Yi is here to die. Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Yi Xian, do you really think that the force behind you can fight against us? At this moment, the middle-aged man's voice came to an abrupt halt. His eyes were wide open as he tightly clutched his throat. There was a sword mark on his throat and blood kept flowing out, instantly dyeing his hands red. At this moment, everyone present was dumbfounded. He was killed. Who killed him? Soon everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at the crowd and said with a smile, Everyone, I'm here today to look for the Dao sect. As for the others, please shut up. Because I don't have time to argue with you. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. At this moment there was fear in their eyes. Yi Xian had just killed a consolidation realm expert. Most importantly, they did not even see how Yi Xian had wielded his sword. The second elder was also a little shocked at this moment. He did not expect Yi Xian to kill a consolidation realm expert with a single sword strike. And it was so easy. What kind of strength does this guy have? At this time Yi Xian looked at the crowd and said with a smile, Everyone, I know that doubting uses some so-called martial arts. The ancient books tempted you to come and kill me, Yi Xian. However, have you ever thought about why the Dao sect would do that? It's very simple, because the Dao sect just wants you to be cannon fodder. Cannon fodder. At this moment an old man stood out. He looked at Yi Xian and said, Young Master Yi, do you know how many people we have here? Yi Xian smiled and said, A few hundred people. The old man said calmly, Young Master Yi, as far as I know, there are not even 100 consolidation realm experts in the 5-dimensional universe. What do you think? Yi Xian smiled and said, You're right. In that case you can make your move. The old man looked at Yi Xian. He did not speak, nor did he make a move. The consolidation realm experts present did not make a move either. At this moment they suddenly thought of something. Why was Yi Xian so fearless? It was because of the force behind Yi Xian. Not to mention whether they could kill Yi Xian. Even if they did, what would happen after they killed him? Whoever killed Yi Xian would definitely suffer the revenge of that mysterious force. Not to mention who could defeat the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun. If these two people took revenge, would they be able to survive? Thinking of this, many people glanced at the Dao sect in the distance. They could not stand out in this matter. Seeing that no one made a move, second brother Dao slowly clenched his right hand. He knew that these people were all smart people. If he did not make a move, these people would definitely not stand out. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly raised his right hand and slapped it in front of him. Fentianjua. As the palm fell, a wave of flames slanted out from Yi Xian's palm. In an instant the entire starry sky was shattered. Seeing Yi Xian suddenly make a move, the experts present were shocked. No one had expected Yi Xian to suddenly make a move. The few consolidation realm experts who were closer to Yi Xian were directly blasted into nothingness by Yi Xian's Fentianjua, and the other consolidation realm experts were also shaken to the point of retreating. Right at this moment, second brother Dao's voice suddenly resounded. Where do you think you're going? As soon as he finished speaking, second brother Dao suddenly stretched his right hand towards the space before him, and then he made a grabbing motion. An enormous hand that could hold up the sky tore through the starry sky over 50,000 kilometers away, and then it grabbed fiercely towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed with his sword. The Dao sword. This strike was swift like a bolt of lightning. Bang! The enormous hand trembled violently before it cracked apart, and Yi Xian was blasted over 100 kilometers away. However, in the next moment his entire body transformed into a strand of light and vanished. The Dao domain. Second brother Dao's expression was slightly gloomy because he noticed that Zhou Xian had vanished. At this moment he suddenly realized that he had slightly underestimated Zhou Xian. He had greatly underestimated Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian actually possessed the strength to instantly kill Consolidation Realm experts. Moreover, he had also cultivated the Dao scripture martial arts of the Dao sect to such an extent. Without second brother Dao, the expressions of the Consolidation Realm experts present were extremely solemn. Zhou Xian's strength had greatly exceeded their expectations. Was he really only at the Consolidation Realm? In the field, it was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. At this moment, the surrounding hundreds of thousands of kilometers of starry sky had turned into a pitch-black spatial black hole. Not only that, but a powerful force was still constantly eroding the origin of the Dao realm. Second brother Dao glanced around and was about to speak when his pupils suddenly shrank. He suddenly turned around, and as he did so, a ray of light from a sword arrived. Second brother Dao clenched his fists tightly, and at this moment, a sword directly pierced between his eyebrows. Chapter 1464. Everyone in the field was shocked. Zhou Xian turned around and attacked. This was something no one had expected. Even the Dao's second brother did not expect this. How dare Zhou Xian? When Zhou Xian's sword pierced half an inch into the Dao's second brother's eyebrows, it could no longer go in. Dao physique. At this critical moment, the Dao's second brother's Dao physique played a life-saving role. Seeing that he could no longer stab in, Zhou Xian stomped his right foot and rotated his right hand forward. Boom! The Dao's second brother was instantly thrown thousands of feet away. As for Zhou Xian, he turned around and disappeared into the end of the starry sky. His attack failed and he fled thousands of miles away. In the starry sky, the Dao's second brother slowly closed his eyes. The space between his eyebrows cracked into a spider web. Not only that, but his physical body had also suffered a certain degree of damage. At this moment, the Dao's second brother's expression was extremely ugly. If it were not for his Dao physique, he would have been killed by Zhou Xian's sword just now. Even now he still had lingering fear from that sword strike. Because it was too fast. It was so fast that even he could not react. In the field, the expressions of the Consolidation Realm experts were extremely solemn. At this moment their hearts were filled with fear. At this moment, everyone could not help but ask themselves, if Zhou Xian's sword was aimed at them, would they be able to block it? The answer was no. Was Zhou Xian a killer or a swordsman? At this moment the Dao's second brother suddenly said, "Everyone please take a rest." After saying that he turned around and left. In the field the Consolidation Realm experts looked at each other. In fact, at this moment some of them were already retreating because they realized that Zhou Xian did not look so easy to bully. Somewhere in the starry sky, Zhou Xian stopped and slowly closed his eyes. He had to say that it was a pity. He could have killed the Dao's second brother just now. Dao physique. With his current strength he still could not cut through the flesh with one sword. There might be a chance if he slashed a few more times. After a while Zhou Xian left. Zhou Xian did not return to the fifth dimension but went directly to the boundless sacred land. Boundless holy land. Zhou Xian had always been wary of this mysterious force. This time he wanted to personally investigate this boundless sacred ground. Just as Zhou Xian stepped into the Saint Realm in the bamboo house at the back of the mountain, the woman who was reading an ancient book suddenly raised her head. She turned her head to look outside the bamboo house and the corners of her lips curled up. Interesting. As she spoke, she lowered her head and continued to read. In the starry sky, Zhou Xian did not advance any further. Because he realized that he seemed to have been discovered. This feeling was a little absurd. Zhou Xian looked in the direction of the boundless sacred ground. Moments later he turned around and left. He did not take any more risks. His current strength was not enough for him to take the risk. After Zhou Xian left, in the bamboo house in the back mountain of the Holy Land, the mysterious woman smiled. Very smart. At this moment the Holy Master arrived in front of the bamboo house and bowed slightly. "Master, that Zhou Xian just went to the Dao sect and then came to our Holy Land. He should have left by now." The woman said, "Ignore him." The Holy Master nodded. Understood. After saying that he quietly retreated. In the bamboo house the woman read the ancient book and as she read her eyes gradually became cold. Zhou Xian arrived at Xian City. As soon as he stepped into Xian City, a man in black suddenly appeared behind him. Yi Xian turned around and the man in black threw out his right hand. 15 bloody heads appeared in front of Yi Xian. The man in black said, "All of them are Dao Sect's Consolidation Realm experts." Yi Xian looked at the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man in front of him was the one who had killed the Taoism powerhouses at the auction. He did not expect that the other party would dare to kill Dao Sect's experts. Moreover, he had really killed 15 Consolidation Realm experts. At this moment, the man in black suddenly stretched out his right hand. Yi Xian flicked his finger and a scroll appeared in front of the man in black. It was the 9th Dao scripture. The man in black put away the Dao scripture and turned to leave. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "There's another deal, do you want to do it?" The man in black stopped. "What else do you have?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "What do you think I can give you?" The man in black was silent. Yi Xian said again, "Can you really understand the 9th Dao scripture?" The man in black opened the scroll and a moment later he asked, "Can you understand it?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "I've already had people study the 9th Dao scripture thoroughly. Do you want it?" The man in black was silent. Yi Xian said again, "The Whirling sect has had the 9th Dao scripture for so many years, but they still have not fully understood it. Do you think you're better than the Whirling sect?" The man in black said, "What do you want me to do?" Yi Xian said, "Follow me." The man in black shook his head. "No. You're too dangerous. Following you is equivalent to risking my life. It's not worth it." Yi Xian smiled and said, "What if I give you a satisfactory price?" The man in black looked at Yi Xian. "What's the price?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "Do you want to go to the 9th dimension?" "The 9th dimension?" The man in black was stunned. Yi Xian looked at the man in black. "I'm serious." The man in black said in a deep voice, "Are you really from the 9th dimension?" Yi Xian nodded, "Yes." The man in black was silent for a moment, then said, "How can I believe you?" Yi Xian flicked his finger and the supreme sword appeared in front of the man in black. "I brought this out from the 9th dimension, take a look." The man in black hesitated for a moment, then held the sword. The next moment he suddenly looked up at Yi Xian. "This?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "You've never seen such a strange sword, right?" The man in black was silent. Yi Xian continued, "You're now at the peak of the consolidation realm, do you want to reach a higher level? For example, the divine realm?" The man in black looked at Yi Xian. "The force behind you is so strong, why do you still need me?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "I'm the son of the 9th dimension, I came here to gain experience, and like the emperor of the secular world, do you understand?" The man in black looked at Yi Xian. "Why do I feel like you're bluffing?" Yi Xian said seriously, "I'm a swordsman. And I'm the world's top swordsman. Do you think such a powerful swordsman would lie?" The man in black was silent. Yi Xian continued, 3 years, you follow me for 3 years, after 3 years I'll help you reach the divine realm, if not." Speaking of this he looked at the man in black. "What's your surname?" The man in black said, "Yang." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "If I can't help you reach the divine realm, I'll change my surname to yours." The man in black was speechless. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I won't force you. If you don't want to, you can leave." The black-clothed man shook his head. "Following you is too dangerous." With that he turned to leave. Meanwhile Yi Xian spoke abruptly, "You killed 15 members of the Daoist sect. They won't let you off." The man in black stopped and Yi Xian said, "I'm about to summon the spirit of the great Dao. Do you really not want to witness the appearance of the spirit of the great Dao? If you follow me you will." In order to obtain a detailed explanation of all the Dao scriptures, including the 9th volume. If you were one of us, believe me, you wouldn't be able to understand this 9th scripture. The black-robed man opened the ancient scroll again. After looking at it for a moment he disappeared. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. He knew that this person would come looking for him again. Because he was absolutely unable to understand the 9th scripture. If not for Nian Nian, even he and Yi Jiming would not have been able to understand the 9th scripture. Yi Xian turned and left. He went to Xian City and found Lan Ruo. In a garden somewhere 2 people were walking side by side. Lan Ruo said softly, "I've underestimated you." Obviously she already knew what Yi Xian had done in the Dao domain. To be honest, she was also a little shocked. Yi Xian had instantly killed a consolidation realm powerhouse and he had almost killed Dao Lao Heir. If second brother Dao didn't have a Dao physique he would definitely be dead. One had to know that Yi Xian had a sword that specifically targeted souls. As long as he became a soul, his combat strength would drop by several levels in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Lan Ruo and said with a smile, "Miss Lan Ruo, to be honest, I've come to you this time to ask for your help." Lan Ruo glanced at Yi Xian and said, "Speak." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Are there any assassins in Xian City?" Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "Yes." Yi Xian said, "The mental cultivation methods and martial arts of the Dao realm from the 1st to the 9th volume of the Dao scriptures." Lan Ruo fell silent. She was very tempted. No force would not be tempted by the Dao scriptures, mental cultivation methods and martial arts of the Dao sections. However, she was still a little hesitant. If she agreed to Yi Xian's request, it would be equivalent to taking a risk with Xian City. As if he knew what Lan Ruo was thinking, Yi Xian asked again, "Does the Dao sects know about these people in Xian City?" Lan Ruo shook her head. "They're some of Xian City's trump cards." Yi Xian smiled and said, "How about this? Let's say that these people were trained by the force behind me." Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "It's far from enough to deal with the Dao sects." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I know." Lan Ruo was silent for a moment before she clapped her hands lightly. The next moment, 10 shadows suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian silently. Yi Xian's expression gradually turned solemn. These 10 people had appeared without any warning. At this moment he realized that he had underestimated these ancient forces. The foundations of these forces were extraordinarily deep. Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "These 10 people are very proficient in assassination and tracking. Now they will listen to your orders." Yi Xian opened his palm and 9 scrolls appeared in his hand. He passed the scrolls to Lan Ruo and said, "9 scrolls of Dao scriptures, mental cultivation methods and martial arts of the Dao world." Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "You're making a loss." Yi Xian smiled and said, "We're friends. Why are we being so calculative?" Lan Ruo hesitated for a moment before she clapped her hands lightly again. At this moment, another 10 men in black appeared behind Yi Xian. 20 super experts. They were all assassins. Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "They're all yours." Yi Xian said softly, "Thank you." Lan Ruo smiled and said, "At the end of the day, you're the one who's making a loss." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Lan Ruo, I'm going to do something big. So we'll meet again." With that he turned around and left with the 20 men. Lan Ruo suddenly said, "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian turned to look at Lan Ruo. Lan Ruo smiled and said, "We'll meet again." Yi Xian smiled and said, "All right." With that he disappeared with the 20 super assassins. Chapter 1465. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian looked at the 20 people in front of him. These 20 people were all at the peak of the consolidation realm, and they were extremely good at concealment and assassination. 20 people was not a lot, but it would be different if there were 20 assassins. Yi Xian turned and looked in the direction of the Dao domain. He did not want to sit still and wait for death. A moment later, Yi Xian disappeared with the 20 people. Dao sect. In a certain hall, Dao brother second sat cross-legged on the ground, his body emitting a dark green luster. Healing. Although Yi Xian's sword had not killed him, it had caused considerable damage to his Dao body. As if thinking of something, he suddenly opened his eyes. Pass down the order. Yi Xian already has the strength to easily kill a consolidation realm expert. Let all Dao sect disciples be careful. Outside the hall a voice sounded, "Yes." Inside the hall, Dao brother second slowly closed his eyes. At this moment he felt more and more uneasy. Yi Xian's strength was far beyond his expectations. Now Yi Xian was only at the Dao attainment realm, but he already had the strength to hurt him. One had to know that there was a difference of 2 realms between him and Yi Xian. Not to mention the half-step divine realm, there was a world of difference between the Dao attainment realm and the consolidation realm. And now Yi Xian could surpass 2 realms. How terrifying was this? Could this guy really be from the 9th dimension? Naturally he did not believe the nonsense that Yi Xian said. The 9th dimension? If there really was such a place, the Dao sect's patriarch would have definitely mentioned it back then. But the Dao sect's patriarch had never mentioned this place. Moreover, Yi Xian loved to fool people the most, so how could he believe what he said? At this moment, Dao brother fourth walked into the hall. At this moment his physical body had already recovered. Dao brother fourth said softly, "We can't delay any longer." Dao brother second was silent. Not long ago Yi Xian had a hard time killing a Dao attainment realm cultivator, but now he can easily kill a consolidation realm cultivator. His growth speed is too terrifying. If this continues, it won't be long before he can easily kill a half-step divine stage expert or even a divine stage expert. The second Dao brother said, "We must deal with two people right now, the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun." The fourth elder said in a low voice, "Not only these two but also Yi Ling and the woman in the plain dress. Neither of them are simple." The second elder was silent. A moment later he opened his eyes and looked at the statue in front of him with a complicated expression. If Master was still here, who in this world would dare to bully the Taoist faction? The fourth Daoist fell silent. "Master. When the patriarch of the Dao sect was still around, who dared to disrespect the Dao sect? Who dared to disrespect the Dao sect? Who in the world would dare to go against the words of the Dao sect? But now, at this time," fourth Daoist sighed in a low voice, "it's our incompetence." The second Daoist said softly, "Indeed." The fourth Daoist said, "Because of what happened to Yi Xian, many people have the intention to retreat. So we can't delay any longer. Didn't the sacred ground agree to let them deal with the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun? If that's the case, then it'll be easy." The second Daoist fell silent. The fourth Daoist asked, "Are you still worried about Yi Ling and the woman in the plain dress?" The second Daoist nodded, "Not just those two. I'm afraid that there are others behind him. The strength of these people." The fourth Daoist looked at the second Daoist, "You're regretting it." The second Daoist said softly, "Indeed. My intuition tells me that we might be walking on a path of no return." The fourth Daoist chuckled, "Second senior brother, have you ever thought about what will happen if Yi Xian summons the Grand Dao spirit? When he summons the spirit of the Great Dao, will you and I have to bow down to him?" The second Daoist fell silent. The Grand Dao spirit. The reason why the Dao sect still had no master was because the Dao sect's ancestor had once said that the person who possessed the Grand Dao spirit would be the next master of the Dao sect. Back then, the Dao sect had internal strife in order to fight for the complete version of the Dao scripture. It was also because of the internal strife that the Dao scripture was divided into 9 parts and scattered across the heavens. It was also because of that internal strife that the Dao sect's strength had declined greatly. At this moment, the fourth Daoist suddenly said, "We have no way out. We can only kill Yi Xian at all costs, obtain the Dao scripture and then summon the Grand Dao spirit." The second Daoist nodded, "Indeed, there is no way out." Now that they had become enemies with Yi Xian, it could be said that either Yi Xian died or the Dao sect died. There was no other way. They could only kill Yi Xian. With that thought, the second Daoist stood up, "Gather everyone." The fourth Daoist stood up and left. Not long after, all the experts in the Dao sect rushed toward the starry sky. In less than 15 minutes, there were more than 600 consolidation realm experts gathered in the starry sky of the Dao sect. Needless to say, this lineup was extremely terrifying. More than 600 consolidation realm experts. It could be said that at least half of the consolidation realm experts in the world were here. Although the Dao sect was not as strong as it used to be, it still had the ability to rally people. In the hall, the second Daoist stood up and left. He came to a starry sky, and not far in front of him was the holy leader of the boundless sacred land. The second Daoist looked at the holy leader. "If those two women appear, can the sacred land handle them?" The holy leader smiled, "Yes." The second Daoist nodded, "That's good." The holy leader suddenly said, "If we kill Yi Xian, the sacred land wants a complete version of the Dao scripture." The second Daoist smiled, "No problem." The holy leader said, "Including the mental cultivation method and the Dao scripture martial arts." The second Daoist looked at the holy leader, "No problem." The holy leader nodded, "Go. If those two women appear, the sacred land will stand up to them." With that, he turned and disappeared into the horizon. In the field, the second Daoist looked much more relaxed. With the help of the sacred land, he had more confidence in killing Yi Xian this time. Soon, the second Daoist and the fourth Daoist led all the experts to the 5th dimension. The two of them did not want to wait any longer. This time the Dao sect really came out in full force. Obviously, the Dao sect wanted to fight to the death. Not long after the second Daoist and the others left the Dao domain, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in the Dao domain. He had been hiding in the dark for a long time, and only appeared when he saw the second Daoist and the others leaving the Dao domain. He naturally would not fight with the second Daoist and the others now. Xian looked around. He had to say that the Dao domain was very cold because all the top experts of the Dao sect had gone to the fifth dimension. Xian walked down, and at this moment, an angry shout suddenly sounded from afar. "Who are you?" Xian casually waved his sword and a head flew hundreds of meters away. At the same time 20 black-clothed men suddenly appeared silently in the surroundings, and it wasn't long before numerous shrill cries resounded incessantly. Xian slowly walked to the front of a large hall, and there was a statue in front of the hall. The statue of the Dao sect's ancestor. Xian glanced at the statue and then walked toward the Dao palace. The Dao palace was very cold and there was not a single person. Xian smiled and he opened his palm and the 9 Dao scriptures appeared in his hand. He glanced at the 9 Dao scriptures and said with a smile, "Let's see if you guys panic." With that he slowly closed his eyes and in front of him, the 9 Dao scriptures suddenly trembled. Fusion. The moment all the Dao scriptures trembled, a mysterious aura suddenly rose from the Dao sect, and went straight into the depths of the starry sky. Dao scriptures fusion. On the other side, the second Daoist and the others were rushing to the starry sky of the fifth dimension. At this moment, a voice sounded in his mind. The second Daoist frowned. The fourth Daoist asked, "Xian went to our Dao domain?" The second Daoist nodded. The fourth Daoist frowned slightly. "Are we going back?" The second Daoist shook his head. "No, he will return to the fifth dimension by himself. Because he is more anxious than us." The fourth Daoist nodded. Everyone continued forward. Not long after, the second Daoist stopped again and a moment later his pupils suddenly shrank. He is fusing the Dao scriptures and he wants to summon the great Dao spirit back to the Dao domain. With that he directly turned and left. The fourth Daoist was stunned and he immediately turned and left. Summon the great Dao spirit. Xian wants to summon the great Dao spirit in the Dao domain? Seeing the second Daoist and the fourth Daoist rush back, many people present were dumbfounded. Not going to the fifth dimension? A moment later, everyone hurriedly followed. The second Daoist and the others rushed back to the Dao domain at their fastest speed. When they rushed back to the Dao domain, Xian suddenly stopped. The second Daoist stared fixedly at Xian, and his face was terrifyingly gloomy. Xian smiled and said, "I didn't expect that you would really come back." The second Daoist slowly clenched his right hand. At this moment Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Second Daoist, if you attack I will immediately fuse the Dao scriptures and summon the great Dao spirit." The second Daoist narrowed his eyes slightly. "Are you threatening me?" Xian smiled and said, "Yes, I am." The second Daoist stared fixedly at Xian and he slowly clenched his right hand. "Summon the great Dao spirit." Xian really summoned the great Dao spirit and the great Dao spirit helped Xian. At that time they would be in a very awkward situation. After all, the patriarch of the Dao faction had said that the person who obtained the recognition of the great Dao spirit would be the master of the Dao faction. If Xian obtained the recognition of the great Dao spirit, then if he continued to kill Xian, it would be equivalent to going against the will of the patriarch of the Dao faction, and many people within the Dao faction would probably rebel against him. After all, many people in the Dao faction respected the words of the Dao faction's patriarch like a god. At this moment the fourth Daoist suddenly said, "Xian, fuse with it." The second Daoist looked at the fourth Daoist and the fourth Daoist smiled and said, "Let him fuse with it." The second Daoist hesitated to speak. Meanwhile, the fourth Daoist sent a voice transmission to the second Daoist. "Will the great Dao spirit recognize him after he fuses with it?" The second Daoist was stunned. "Right. Will the great Dao spirit recognize Xian as its master? Of course not. Because after the patriarch of the Dao faction passed away, the great Dao spirit didn't submit to anyone. Otherwise, the Dao faction wouldn't be without a leader now." At the thought of this, the second Daoist looked at Xian and said, "Xian, fuse with it." Xian fell silent and he was slightly afraid. Would the great Dao spirit do him in? After all, the great Dao spirit belongs to the Dao faction. If it summoned a father, then it would be a pain in the ass. P.S. Give me a monthly ticket and I will take you to the 9th dimension to play. Those who write books never lie. Chapter 1466. It was fusing with the spirit of the Grand Dao. He was quite fearful as well. Because he still remembered what Master Qing had said. The spirit of the Grand Dao wasn't a benevolent fellow. He was able to discern that the Dao sect was very fearful of the spirit of the Grand Dao. However, if the spirit of the Grand Dao refused to acknowledge him or even stood on the Dao sect's side, then it would be a huge pain in the ass. Meanwhile, second brother suddenly laughed coldly. Yi Xian, what are you waiting for? Yi Xian gazed at second brother and smiled. As you wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly pressed his palms together, and the Dao scripture was instantly activated by his strength to fuse the 9 scriptures into one. Bang! At the instant the 9 scriptures fused into one, an invisible force surged out from Yi Xian, and it instantly caused ripples to arise in the space around him. The expressions of fourth brother and the others gradually became solemn. The spirit of the Grand Dao was the spirit of the Dao scripture, and it was the existence that had followed the ancestor of the Dao sect for the longest time. Moreover, the status of the Dao scripture in the Dao sect was merely inferior to the ancestor. If the spirit of the Grand Dao stood on Yi Xian's side, then it would be extremely disadvantageous to the Dao sect. Everyone was looking at Yi Xian. The Dao scripture in Yi Xian's hand gradually emanated a ray of white light, and then it floated up into the sky. Yi Xian gazed at the white light in the sky, and a shadow was gradually condensing within it. The spirit of the Grand Dao. Not far away, the expressions of countless experts from the Dao sect became excited. It was the spirit of the Grand Dao. After the ancestor of the Dao sect left, the spirit of the Grand Dao had become the symbol of the Dao sect. Unfortunately, internal strife had caused the Dao scripture to be split into 9, and the spirit of the Grand Dao had fallen into deep slumber. Yet now, the spirit of the Grand Dao was finally about to appear. Right at this moment, the Dao scripture in front of Yi Xian suddenly started burning. Yi Xian was stunned. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. What's going on? Yi Xian grabbed at the burning Dao scripture with his right hand. However, a powerful force sent him flying thousands of feet away. Yi Xian was shocked. He looked at the Dao scripture again. At this time, the complete Dao scripture directly transformed into a flame and disappeared into the end of the starry sky. Gone. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. That's it? Fourth Dao brother and second Dao brother looked at each other with a trace of doubt in their eyes. What was going on? Yi Xian was also a little confused at this moment. That's it? Where was the spirit of the great Dao? As if he had thought of something, he looked at the Dao second brother in the distance. In the next moment he turned and ran. His speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon of the starry sky. Seeing that Yi Xian was running away, second elder Dao said fiercely, "Chase him." As soon as he finished speaking, he was the first to rush out. At this moment he had no time to care about the Dao scripture. The most important thing was to deal with Yi Xian first. In the starry sky, Yi Xian ran all the way. Behind him, there were nearly 700 Consolidation Realm experts. This time the Dao sect was really going to risk their lives with him. At this moment, second Dao brother suddenly stopped. He looked at the sword light at the end of the starry sky in the distance. Let's go to the 5th dimension. After saying that, he turned and left. Chasing after Yi Xian like this was too much of a waste of time. If they went directly to the 5th dimension, Yi Xian would definitely return to the 5th dimension. Soon, second Dao brother and the others went straight to the 5th dimension. In the distant starry sky, Yi Xian stopped. He looked in the direction where second Dao brother and the others left. It was the direction of the 5th dimension. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a voice transmission talisman suddenly disappeared. After a moment, the space in front of him gradually trembled and a voice came out. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned and disappeared into the distance. In the 5th dimension. Inside the sword hall. Knowing Destiny sat cross-legged on the ground. In front of her there were 9 scrolls. They were the 9 scrolls of the Dao scripture. However, these 9 scrolls were all copied and not the real thing. In front of Yi Jiming was Nian Nian. Nian Nian held a fish in her left hand and a stick of tonghulu in her right. She would occasionally lick the fish and then the tonghulu. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly looked at Nian Nian. Nian Nian. Nian Nian looked at Yi Jiming. Sister Jiming, what's wrong? Yi Jiming smiled. Nian Nian, tell me honestly. Have you recovered your memories? Nian Nian blinked. Recovered my memories? Yi Jiming nodded. Nian Nian shook her head. No. I can't remember a lot of things. Yi Jiming was silent. Nian Nian didn't look like she was lying. However, her intuition told her that Nian Nian was becoming more and more different. At this moment, Nian Nian suddenly raised her head. The next moment she looked at Yi Jiming and smiled. "Sister Jiming, I'm going to play." After saying that, she got up and left. In the hall, Yi Jiming frowned. She chased after her, but Nian Nian was already gone. Gone. Yi Jiming was stunned. In the sky above Dao City, a woman in a dark green dress stood quietly in the clouds. Behind her was the holy leader. At this moment, the woman suddenly turned her head. Not far away, the clouds parted and a woman slowly walked over. It was Nian Nian. The woman looked at Nian Nian and smiled. Nian Nian walked to the woman's side. Neither of them said a word and just stood there quietly. At this moment, at the end of the starry sky, a powerful aura swept over. The experts of the Dao sect had arrived. Nian Nian licked the candied hawthorn but still did not say a word. The woman glanced at the candied hawthorn in Nian Nian's hand and smiled. Candied hawthorn. There's a little white guy who especially likes to eat candied hawthorn. There's also that little girl. Both of them really like to eat candied hawthorn. Nian Nian continued to lick the candied hawthorn without saying a word. The woman smiled. "Are you afraid that I'll attack, so you came to watch me?" Nian Nian glanced at the woman. "Do you dare to attack?" The woman shook her head. "I don't dare." As she said that, she looked at Nian Nian and smiled. "You don't dare either." Nian Nian shrugged and continued to lick the candied hawthorn. The woman did not say anything else. She looked into the distance. At this moment, second brother Dao and the others had already entered the starry sky of the fifth dimension. It had to be said that the difference in strength between the fifth dimension and the Dao sect was huge. Below Dao City, Bai Dizzy looked at second brother Dao and the others in the sky with a calm expression. He had already expected this day. Behind him were Li Xianxia and the others. They were all super experts from the whirling world. Li Xianxia looked at second brother Dao and the others in the sky with a calm expression. In fact, he was not panicking at all. Why? Those who had not come into contact with the white-robed woman would not know how terrifying she was. Back then, didn't the Xuanhuan sect think that they could defeat Yi Xian just like the current Dao sect? But in the end, not only was Li Xianxia not panicking, but the experts from the whirling world were also very calm. In fact, they were a little uneasy at the beginning because there were too many experts. But as long as they thought of the two women, they would calm down. Those were two immortals. In the sky, second brother Dao looked down. Compared to the Dao sect, the strength of the fifth dimension was indeed very weak, but he did not dare to underestimate them. At this moment, a man suddenly appeared not far in front of second brother Dao and the others. The person who had come was Yi Xian. Seeing Yi Xian, Bai Dizzy's expression relaxed slightly. He was not afraid that Yi Xian would run away, but mainly because he felt more at ease with this guy here. Second brother Dao looked at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, where are your people?" Yi Xian smiled. He did not answer second brother Dao, but turned to look at the consolidation realm experts in the field. "Everyone, I know that many of you are not from the Dao sect, but because you want to get some benefits you came to kill me, Yi Xian. I have no grievances with any of you. If you leave now, nothing will happen to me." In the field, the consolidation realm experts looked at Yi Xian without saying a word and no one left. Now that the Dao sect had an overwhelming advantage and the benefits were at their fingertips, why would they leave? Seeing that no one left, Yi Xian smiled, then looked at second brother Dao. "Second brother, do you want to fight one-on-one?" "Second brother." The expressions of everyone in the field became a little strange. Second brother Dao looked at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, I will not give you any chance. Since your people will not appear, then you and your fifth dimension will die together." As his voice fell, he suddenly said, "Attack." As soon as the words fell, more than 20 shadows suddenly rushed straight down from the sky. All of them were experts at the peak of the consolidation realm, and their auras were infinitely close to the half-step divine realm. Dao guards. These were 20 people carefully cultivated by the Dao sect, and their strength far exceeded that of ordinary consolidation realm experts. The target of these 20 people was Yi Xian. Fourth brother Dao and second brother Dao did not make a move. They were waiting to fight whoever saved Yi Xian. Below, Yi Xian's expression was calm. At this moment, Li Xianxia suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Li Xianxia and Li Xianxia smiled awkwardly. "Young Master Yi, let my Xuanhuan sect perform." Yi Xian asked, "Are you sure?" Li Xianxia said seriously, "Of course." Yi Xian nodded and made an inviting gesture. Li Xianxia raised his head and looked at the 20 people rushing down with a calm expression. He opened his palm and a black wooden seal suddenly flew out from his palm. Ancestor summon. Ancestor summon. On the side, Yi Xian's expression became a little strange. In the past it was others who summoned their ancestor to beat him, but this was the first time someone summoned their ancestor to protect him. In fact, Li Xianxui's heart was also a little complicated. This could be said to be the Xuanhuan sect's last life-saving trump card. Previously he wanted to use it on the white-robed woman, but he was not sure at that time. After seeing the miserable state of the Xuanhuan sect after summoning their ancestor, he was even more glad that he did not summon their ancestor. The reason why he summoned their ancestor now was to show off. Otherwise, the Xuanhuan sect would not have a sense of existence in the fifth dimension. As Li Xianxui's voice fell, a black light suddenly shot up from the black wooden seal into the sky. Boom! A powerful aura directly forced the 20 people from the Dao sect to stop in place. Then a middle-aged man in a black robe appeared in the sky. The Xuanhuan sect's patriarch. Seeing the Xuanhuan sect's patriarch, second brother Dao frowned. It was just a split soul. However, this middle-aged man was once an expert at the peak of the god state. At this moment, the current patriarch of the Shao clan, Shao Kuo, suddenly roared, "Ancestor summon." As his voice fell, he directly threw out a black chess piece, which turned into a black light and shot into the sky. At the same time, the current dean of the Dao returning courtyard, Qiu Min, suddenly said, "Ancestor, please." As his voice fell, a white light shot up into the sky. On the other side, Xuanji sect master Gu Wuchao was a little embarrassed. In the past, the Xuanji sect had already summoned their ancestor once. Now they could not summon it. What should they do? They could not lose face. They had to put in some effort, right? Gu Wuchao seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly pointed at second brother Dao and roared, "Second brother Dao, I'll screw your ancestor." Everyone. Chapter 1467. Hearing Gu Wuchao's words, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. This guy was actually cursing. In the field, some experts also looked at Gu Wuchao with strange expressions. After all, this guy was still a consolidation realm expert. How could he curse like this? At this moment, Gu Wuchao suddenly walked to Yi Xian's side, bowed slightly, and then respectfully retreated behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian. In the field, everyone looked at Yi Xian. Obviously, this was Yi Xian's instigation. In the sky, the second Dao master's gaze also fell on Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, you don't have the demeanor of an expert at all." Yi Xian turned his head and glanced at Gu Wuchao. Gu Wuchao smiled awkwardly. "I live and die with the five-dimensional universe." Yi Xian was speechless. He looked up at the sky. At this time there were 3 super experts in the sky. They were the black-robed middle-aged man from the Xuanhao sect, the ancestor of the Shao clan, and the ancestor of the Dao returning academy. The ancestor of the Shao clan was an old man in a gray robe. His eyes were like knives, giving off a strong sense of oppression. The ancestor of the Dao returning academy wore a brown robe. His long hair draped over his shoulders and he held a black ancient book in his hand. The ancestors of 3 super forces. When the 3 appeared, the expressions of the second Dao master and the others gradually became solemn. The whirling world was not a low-level world. In this world there were also many amazing experts. Just these 3 people in front of them were at least in the God realm, and they were definitely not ordinary God realm experts. They were even above the God realm. Although this kind of existence could not compare to the ancestor of the Dao sect, this kind of existence belonged to the top of this world. They could not be underestimated. In the sky, the Xuanhao sect's ancestor looked around. Finally, he looked at the sect master of the Xuanhao sect, Li Xianxia. Li Xianxia hurriedly bowed respectfully. The Xuanhao sect's ancestor said, "This is not the whirling world." Li Xianxia said respectfully, "Ancestor, the Xuanhao sect will advance and retreat with young Master Yi." Advance and retreat together. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect looked at Yi Xian. Li Xianxia quickly nodded. The gazes of the desolate clan's ancestor and the Dao returnant's courtyard's ancestor descended onto Yi Xian. Yi Xian cupped his fists at the patriarch of Xuanhao sect. The old ancestor of the Xuanhao sect looked at Yi Xian. Gradually, a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. "Your bloodline." Yi Xian opened his palm and the blood in his body began to tremble. When the power of Yi Xian's bloodline emerged, The surprise in the eyes of the patriarch of Xuanao sect gradually turned into shock. On the other side, the patriarch of the Shao clan and the patriarch of the Dao Returning Academy were also shocked. The same was true for the surrounding Consolidation Realm experts. In fact, Yi Xian's bloodline power had always been growing. His current bloodline power was many times stronger than before. As for why it kept growing, Yi Xian was not particularly clear. According to his guess, it might have something to do with madness. The crazier one was, the stronger the bloodline power. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect looked at Yi Xian. He's indeed not simple. As he spoke, he looked at Li Shanshui. You bet the future of the Xianxia sect on him? Li Shanshui nodded. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect asked, No regrets? Li Shanshui shook his head. No regrets. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect nodded slightly. Just as he was about to speak, the second brother suddenly said, Sir, we are from the Dao sect. The Dao sect. Hearing this, the patriarch of the Xianxia sect looked at the second brother and said with a smile, Dao sect? Are you threatening me? The second brother was expressionless. I just want to remind you that this matter has nothing to do with the Xianxia sect. Why do you want your descendants to be involved in this struggle? If you let your descendants leave now, the Dao sect will let bygones be bygones. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect shook his head and smiled. May I ask, are you in charge of the Dao sect now? The second brother said, Yes. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect shook his head. The Dao sect's patriarch is also a senior I respect, but why is the disciple he chose so stupid? The second brother looked at the patriarch of the Xianxia sect with a calm expression. It seems that you are determined to make the Xianxia sect an enemy of the Dao sect. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect said with a smile, Just now my descendant told me that this young Master Yi has gathered all 9 Dao scriptures, so your Dao sect wants to kill him, right? The second brother said calmly, So what? Idiot. The smile on the patriarch of the Xianxia sect's face disappeared. I can tell at a glance that you are an idiot, but I didn't expect you to be this stupid. Everyone was speechless. The second brother narrowed his eyes and slowly clenched his right hand. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect said, What kind of person is the Dao sect's patriarch? He left behind the Dao scriptures, but the great Dao spirit doesn't recognize you as its master. Have you ever thought about why? And these 9 Dao scriptures have fallen into the hands of this young Master Yi. Have you ever thought about why? The second brother was silent. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect continued, This young Master Yi has the legendary cause of misfortune, but he is able to live until now. What does this prove? It proves that someone is forcibly resisting the cause of misfortune for him. In my opinion, someone who can do this will not lose to your Dao sect's patriarch. And your Dao sect's 9 Dao scriptures have fallen into the hands of young Master Yi. Don't you think this may also be an arrangement of your Dao sect's patriarch? The second brother said in a deep voice, Absolutely impossible. Master will never choose him. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect chuckled. Could he have chosen you? The second brother stared at the patriarch of the Xianxia sect. Master will never choose him. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect smiled. Second brother, you are the disciple of the Dao sect's patriarch. Why are you so bad? Look at you now. There is only hatred in your eyes and no reason. You have cultivated to this level. Logically speaking, your temperament should not be bad, but why are you blinded by hatred now? The second brother was expressionless. Are you teaching me how to be a person? The patriarch of the Xianxia sect laughed. Teach you how to be a person? Second brother, to say that you are stupid is an insult to the word, stupid. The reason why I'm talking so much nonsense with you is that what I learned is also derived from the Dao scriptures. The Dao sect's patriarch is someone I respect. I don't want the Dao sect he established to be destroyed by you. I just didn't expect your temperament to be so bad. A person like you leading the Dao sect is not only the sorrow of the Dao sect, but also the sorrow of the Dao sect's patriarch. At this moment, the fourth brother of the Dao sect suddenly laughed. The reason why you said this is because you think our Dao sect is inferior to young Master Yi, right? The patriarch of the Xianxia sect looked at the fourth brother of the Dao sect and said with a smile, It seems that you still don't understand what the cause of misfortune is. No, I should say that you have become arrogant. However, it's very sad that you don't have the strength to be arrogant, but you think you have the strength. Why? Because you think you are the disciples of the Dao sect's patriarch. but you have never thought that the reason why the Dao sect is strong is not because of you, but because of the Dao sect's patriarch. There is a difference between a Dao sect with the Dao sect's patriarch and a Dao sect without him. Understand? The fourth Taoist smiled and said, I would like to know if your strength is as sharp as your mouth. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect roared with laughter, and then he suddenly vanished on the spot. In the distance, the fourth brother's expression changed abruptly, and he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Rumble. Along with a shocking explosion, the fourth brother of the Dao sect retreated explosively, and he retreated thousands of meters into the starry sky. The expressions of everyone here changed. He's so strong? Zhou Xian was quite shocked as well. Even though the patriarch of the Dao sect was only a wisp of his soul, he was actually so strong. In the distance, the second brother of the Dao sect stared fixedly at the patriarch of the Xianxia sect, and he was quite shocked as well. A wisp of the soul of a god-rank realm expert was actually so strong. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect gazed at the fourth brother in the distance and said with a smile, looks like it's always the fist that's stronger in any era. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot once more. The pupils of the fourth brother of the Dao sect suddenly constricted, and he swiftly raised his arms. A fist seal arrived. Bang! The fourth brother of the Dao sect was instantly blasted away and he flew for thousands of meters. Not only that, but his body even split apart. His current body wasn't a Dao physique any longer because his Dao physique had been shattered by Yi Ling. So his current body was extremely weak. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect gazed at the fourth brother of the Dao sect and said with a smile, I've noticed that you can't reason with some people because if you do, they'll look at you like an idiot. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot once more. Right at this moment, the second brother of the Dao sect suddenly vanished on the spot. Rumble. The space in the sky suddenly collapsed, and then a figure retreated explosively for over 1 kilometer. It was the second brother of the Dao sect. After he stopped moving, he gazed at the patriarch of the Xianxia sect. From today onward, the Xianxia sect will cease to exist in this world. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect roared with laughter. A little second brother of the Dao sect is laughable. You're being used as a pawn by others, yet you don't even realize it. How laughable. The second brother frowned slightly. What do you mean? The patriarch of the Xianxia sect blinked. I'm not telling you. You idiot. But after saying that, he turned to look at Yi Xian below. Young Master Yi, I've sent a wisp of my soul to help you today. I hope that young Master Yi will treat the Xianxia sect well in the future. The Xianxia sect doesn't seek to be invincible in the world, but to be passed down from generation to generation. Yi Xian bowed slightly. I, Yi Xian, will forever remember the kindness of the Xianxia sect. The patriarch of the Xianxia sect smiled and said, with young Master Ye's words, I'm relieved. After saying that, he glanced at the clouds somewhere. Young Master Yi, remember, not all of your enemies are as stupid as the second brother. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned and rushed toward the second brother of the Dao sect. Seeing the patriarch of the Xianxia sect rushing over, the second brother's face became ferocious. Kill. If Yi Xian is destroyed today, you can take anything in the fifth dimension in the whirling world. After saying that, he rushed over. The rest of the Consolidation Realm experts from the Dao sects also rushed over. However, some of the Consolidation Realm experts who did not belong to the Dao sects were a little hesitant. But there were also some who directly rushed over. Below, the ancestor of the Shao clan and the ancestor of the Dao Returning Academy looked at each other. The ancestor of the Shao clan turned to look at Yi Xian. What do you think? The ancestor of the Dao Returning Academy smiled and said, I was hesitating just now. After all, it's the Dao sects, but now it seems the person in charge of the Dao sects is too stupid. If we help this kind of person, I'm afraid our Dao Returning Academy will be doomed. So let's choose this young Master Yi. After saying that, he rushed out. The ancestor of the Shao clan smiled and said, why did the Dao sects choose such an idiot to be in charge? This IQ is worse than the pigs I raised back then. After saying that, he also rushed out. On the other side, in the clouds, the mysterious woman beside Nian Nian smiled and said, the sect master of the Xianxia sect has discovered us. Interesting. Nian Nian licked the Tonghulu and did not speak. The mysterious woman looked at Nian Nian. Do you want to kill me? Nian Nian nodded. The mysterious woman gently stroked the hair beside her ear with her jade-like hand and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. No one can kill me under 3 strikes. Nian Nian licked the Tonghulu. Can you take 1 strike from the plain-dressed woman? The mysterious woman's smile gradually disappeared. After a moment she looked at Nian Nian. If you continue to chat like this, I won't be chatting with you anymore. P.S. After I update the first chapter, I will be disconnected from the internet when I update the second chapter. Chapter 1468. In the sky above Dao City, a great battle had begun. Although the 5th dimension was at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, with the addition of the Xianyao sect's patriarch, the Shao clan's patriarch, and the Dao Return Courtyard's patriarch, the situation was instantly different. The Xianyao sect's patriarch was holding off Dao Lao Air and Dao Lao Si by himself, while the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao Return Courtyard's patriarch were directly suppressing nearly 200 Consolidation Realm experts. Although it was only a wisp of their soul, the difference between these Consolidation Realm experts and them was too great. However, as they made their moves, their wisps of soul became more and more illusory. Below, Bai Dizzy suddenly said, "Make your move." As his voice fell, all the Consolidation Realm experts of the 5th dimension soared into the sky. As the experts of the 5th dimension made their move, 20 black-clothed men suddenly rushed into the crowd of Dao sect experts. Then bloody heads flew into the sky. Assassins. These 20 people were the 20 super assassins that Yi Xian had borrowed from Xian City. Yi Xian did not make a move. His eyes were fixed on Dao Lao Air. At this time, Dao Lao Air and Dao Lao Si were being suppressed by the Xianyao sect's patriarch. Dao Lao Air did not focus all his energy on the Xianyao sect's patriarch. He had been guarding against Yi Xian. He had not forgotten Yi Xian's sword. That sword had almost killed him in an instant. Therefore, until now, he had been distracted by guarding against Yi Xian to ensure that when Yi Xian made his move, he would be the first to react. However, Yi Xian did not make a move. Instead, he just looked at him, which put a great deal of pressure on him. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. "Second brother, I'm going to make my move." He was going to make his move. Dao Lao Air, who was fighting with the Xianyao sect's patriarch, suddenly changed his expression. He glanced at Yi Xian, who was looking at him with a smile. Dao Lao Air did not dare to be too distracted. He withdrew his gaze because the Xianyao sect's patriarch in front of him was very powerful. Just as second brother Dao withdrew his gaze, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Second brother Dao, I'm really going to make a move." Second elder Dao suddenly turned his head to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian blinked and said, "Don't worry, I'm about to make my move." "Yi Xian," the second Daoist said fiercely. Yi Xian grinned. "Come and hit me." Just as the second elder was about to speak, a shadow suddenly rushed in front of him. Second elder Dao's pupils suddenly shrank, and his arms suddenly moved forward to block. Boom! The second Daoist was sent flying thousands of feet away. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Sensing this, the second elder's pupils suddenly shrank. He waved his right hand and a black round shield appeared in front of him. This black round shield was specially kept for Yi Xian. However, he quickly noticed that the target of Yi Xian's attack wasn't him. It was fourth elder Dao. When he noticed this, second elder Dao suddenly turned his head to look at fourth elder Dao, who was not far away. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Before his voice died away, swoosh. A ray of sword light suddenly pierced through fourth elder Dao's eyebrows. Without his Taoist body, fourth elder Dao's eyebrows were directly pierced by Yi Xian's sword. Fourth elder Dao's body froze in the air. His eyes were wide open and full of disbelief. He didn't expect that Yi Xian's target wasn't fourth elder Dao but him. Of course, he didn't expect that the sword would be so fast that he didn't even have time to react. In front of fourth elder Dao, Yi Xian held the sword in his right hand and pulled it out little by little. Between fourth elder Dao's eyebrows, blood spurted out. Second elder Dao stared at Yi Xian. He was about to make a move when the patriarch of Xuanao sect appeared in front of him again. Second elder Dao suddenly turned his head and said fiercely, "Get lost." As soon as his voice fell, he punched out. Taoist fist. A punch with all his strength. Rumble. The surrounding starry sky trembled violently. Second elder Dao retreated hundreds of feet, and the patriarch of Xuanao sect also retreated hundreds of feet. After stopping, he didn't make another move because his soul was already very transparent and was about to disappear. Seeing this, second elder Dao was about to take the initiative to attack, But at this time, Xian suddenly appeared in front of the patriarch of Xuanao sect. Second Elder Dao narrowed his eyes and turned to look in the direction of Fourth Elder Dao. At this moment, Fourth Elder Dao's soul had been absorbed by Xian's sword, leaving only his physical body. His soul had been destroyed. Seeing this, Second Elder Dao's face became extremely ferocious. He turned to look at Xian and said, "Xian, my Taoist sect is absolutely irreconcilable with you." Xian smiled and said, "Don't you think it's stupid to say that now?" Behind Xian, the patriarch of Xuanao sect suddenly said, "Young friend, this strand of my soul is about to vanish." Xian turned to look at the patriarch of Xuanao sect, cupped his fists and said, "I, Xian, will remember senior's help." The patriarch of Xuanao sect smiled and said, "Just take care of my Xuanao sect." Xian nodded and said, "Of course." The patriarch of Xuanao sect turned to look at the clouds again, and then his body gradually became illusory. Xian glanced in the direction the patriarch of Xuanao sect was looking, but he couldn't see anything. Xian thought for a moment and said, "Senior, did you see something?" The patriarch of Xuanao sect was about to speak when he suddenly vanished without a trace. Xian's eyes instantly narrowed when he saw this. Someone had forcefully wiped out the patriarch of Xuanao sect. Who was it? Xian turned to look at the clouds, but there was nothing there. There were actually two women standing above the clouds, but Xian couldn't see them. At this moment, Nian suddenly said, "There should be a backup plan." The mysterious woman smiled and said, "Of course." Nian nodded. "I'm looking forward to it." The mysterious woman smiled and said, "I'm looking forward to it as well." In the distance, Xian retracted his gaze and turned to look around. The Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao returning monastery's patriarch were still there. With the two of them working together, they had killed more than 50 Consolidation Realm experts. Their strength was slightly inferior to the patriarch of Xuanao sect. At this moment, their strands of soul were becoming more and more illusory. At the sight of this, Xian knew he could not delay any longer. Xian opened his palm and the supreme sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment he vanished on the spot. In the distance, the second elder's eyes narrowed slightly as he blasted a punch forward. Bang! A wisp of sword light was forced to a stop. In front of the second elder, Xian stomped his right foot, and the Dao sword in his hand suddenly turned into a technological form. In the next moment his strength increased explosively. Rumble! The second elder was knocked back hundreds of feet. Meanwhile, Xian didn't attack the second elder again. Instead he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the distance. In the distant crowd, the head of a Dao sect Consolidation Realm expert flew into the air. Instant kill sword. Ordinary Consolidation Realm experts had no way of resisting Xian's instant kill sword. Massacre. When Xian entered the crowd, it was simply a massacre. Seeing this scene, the second elder's expression turned extremely ugly. He was just about to make a move when Xian suddenly turned around and slashed at him. The second elder didn't dodge and directly punched out. Dao fist. As for Xian's sword, it was a Dao sword. Boom. With a loud explosion, the two of them retreated rapidly. Xian retreated 100 feet and the second elder also retreated nearly 100 feet. The two of them were evenly matched. When Xian had stopped, he raised his hand and brandished his sword at the right side. Instant kill sword. 100 feet to the right, the head of a Consolidation Realm expert flew into the air. Instant kill. In the field, the Consolidation Realm experts who came to help the Dao sect were finally afraid. Because up until now, more than 200 Consolidation Realm experts had died on the battlefield. Most of them were killed by the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao Returning Academy's patriarch, and some were killed by the 20 super assassins from Xian City. As for the elites of the Dao sect, they had always been restrained by the Dao Returning Academy's patriarch. In fact, without these three patriarchs, the situation in the fifth dimension would have become very bad. These three people were equivalent to hundreds of Consolidation Realm experts. After all, they were once all-powerful figures. As long as they did not encounter experts like the white-robed woman, even their split souls were not something ordinary people could fight against. Now Xian was also anxious. Because once the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao Returning Academy's patriarch disappeared, the situation in the fifth dimension would be very disadvantageous. Therefore he had to end the battle while the two of them were still around. The second elder also understood this, and what he had to do was to stall them. As long as he could stall until the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao returning academy's patriarch disappeared, the situation would be reversed. The Dao sect still had a chance to win. At this moment, Xian looked at the Shao clan's patriarch in the distance. "Senior, can you help me stall the second elder?" In the distance, the Shao clan's patriarch stopped and turned to look at the second elder. 15 minutes. Xian smiled and said, "That's enough." As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the second elder was about to attack when the Shao clan's patriarch appeared in front of him. The second elder said in a deep voice, "Sir, aren't you afraid that the Shao clan will be doomed?" The Shao clan's patriarch shook his head and smiled. "You're still threatening me now. You're too stupid." After saying that, he disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the second elder threw a punch. Boom. The surrounding space shook as if there was an earthquake. The Shao clan's patriarch was pushed back by the punch. After stopping, the Shao clan's patriarch shook his head. "It's just a split soul after all." After saying that, he rushed out. 15 minutes. He only needed to buy 15 minutes for Xian. After Xian rushed into the group of people in the distance, rays of sword gleams appeared, and each sword gleam took a life. Instant kill. In addition to his Dao body, ordinary Consolidation Realm experts would not be able to cause fatal damage to him. In a short while, Xian had killed more than 10 Consolidation Realm experts. Seeing this, some of the Consolidation Realm experts who came to help the Dao sect chose to retreat. They were here to make a fortune, not to risk their lives. Especially now that the Dao sect was at a disadvantage. As those people left, the Dao sect's situation became worse and worse. At this moment, Nian, who was in the clouds, suddenly raised her head and looked at the sky. In the next moment, she looked at Xian's position. There, an afterimage silently appeared. Xian suddenly turned around and slashed with his sword. Boom. The sword gleam shattered, and Xian retreated thousands of meters away. The afterimage waved its right hand, and the split souls of the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao returning courtyard's patriarch were directly wiped out. The scene became silent. Chapter 1469. Everyone was looking at the afterimage, which was gradually becoming more and more solid. It was a woman in white holding a jade flute in her hand. Seeing this woman, Xian's expression gradually became serious. His opponent's attack just now had directly shattered his Dao body. A godly state expert. A true godly state expert. In the distance, the Dao sect experts became excited. Dao sect's third brother. Third miss. She was once the Dao sect's patriarch's proudest disciple. She only liked to cultivate and hunt for novelty, never getting involved in the internal affairs of the Dao sect. Back then, she was actually the most likely to become the Dao sect's leader because she was the Dao sect's patriarch's proudest disciple. Most importantly, she was the most talented among the 4 disciples. Unfortunately, after the Dao sect's patriarch disappeared, she only came back to take a look before leaving. Once she left, she never returned. Seeing third miss, second brother also heaved a huge sigh of relief. He finally came back. If she didn't come back, even if the Dao sect won today, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Moreover, the Dao sect was very likely to lose. Because if no one restrained Xian with Xian's strength, he would probably be able to destroy all the Dao sect's Consolidation Realm experts. Second brother walked to third miss and stared at Xian. "Third junior sister, I'll hold Xian back. Leave the rest to me." Saying that, he was about to make a move. At this moment, third miss suddenly said, "Second senior brother, I'm very disappointed." Second brother looked at third miss and third miss shook her head, very disappointed. Second brother said in a deep voice, "What do you mean?" Third miss did not answer second brother. She turned to look at the Dao sect experts. "You guys also disappointed me." Everyone was silent. Third miss looked at second brother. "Do you think the Dao sect can win today?" Second brother said in a deep voice, "If junior sister is willing to help, can we lose?" Third miss shook her head. "Second senior brother, you need to calm down." "Calm down." Second brother narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" Third miss looked at second brother. "As far as I know, you should have investigated Xian. Then you should know that he is someone who has the cause of disaster, right?" Second brother said in a deep voice, "Yes. But so what?" The third young lady frowned. "So what? Ask yourself, can you resist this cause of disaster?" The second Daoist was silent. The The third young lady continued, let's not talk about the cause of this disaster. Let's talk about this person's bloodline. Have you ever seen such a powerful bloodline? The second Daoist was silent. The third young lady continued, the most important thing is that the white-robed woman has seen the person behind this person before. Let me ask, when the white-robed woman was in the whirling sect, she summoned the Xuanji sect's ancestor, but what was the result? In the end, the profound secret sect submitted to Zhou Xian. Yet he was injured by a wisp of the Xuanhuan sect's ancestor's soul. Tell me, can he be compared to her? The second elder was silent and his face was gloomy. The third young lady shook her head. When Master was still alive, Dao sect was the #1 power in the world. However, Master often said that there is always someone better than you. No one is truly invincible. There is no strongest, only stronger. Second senior brother didn't remember what he said at all. The second Daoist spoke fiercely, it's impossible for there to be a power stronger than my Dao sect in this world. The third young lady sighed in a low voice. The reason why the Dao sect is strong isn't because of us, it's because of Master. But now Master's gone. Understand? The second Daoist was slightly mad. He pointed angrily at Zhou Xian and said, he's a true expert at the peak of the god rank realm. So long as he attacks, then Zhou Xian will definitely die today. Why didn't he attack? The third young lady gazed at the second Daoist. After a short moment she shook her head. I gave him the opportunity but I didn't cherish it. As soon as she finished speaking she opened her palm, and an ink-colored ruler suddenly appeared in her hand. The Daoist ruler. The expressions of the experts from the Dao sect instantly changed when they saw it. It was a sacred artifact of the Dao sect that was only inferior to the Dao scriptures. It was used by the Dao sect's ancestor to discipline his disciples, and it contained the Dao laws that the Dao sect's ancestor had personally set up within it. The second Daoist's expression changed as well and he took a few steps back. All those years ago he'd been struck by the Daoist ruler and it was already traumatized by it. The third young lady suddenly waved her right hand and a ruler image flew out. Bang! The second Daoist was struck by the ruler image, and his skin and flesh split open while blood sprayed. His invincible Dao physique was as weak as paper before the Daoist ruler. Moreover, a mysterious force had directly restrained the second Daoist, causing him to be unable to move at all. Zhou Xian's eyelids twitched when he witnessed this scene. After all, he possessed the Dao physique as well. The Daoist ruler seemed to be able to restrain the Dao physique. The second Daoist ruler stared fixedly at the third young lady. Third young lady, what are you doing? The third young lady turned around to gaze at an expert from the Dao sect. Take him to the Dao prison, imprison his soul and seal his body. He can't leave the Dao prison for 100 years. 100 years. The old man was stunned. The second Daoist ruler's expression became ferocious. Third young lady, you dare. You dare. The third young lady gazed at the old man. Do I have to repeat myself? The old man hesitated for a moment before he walked towards the second Daoist ruler. The second Daoist ruler gazed at the third young lady and roared like a wild beast. Third young lady, what exactly are you afraid of? Who in this world can restrain him with his strength? So long as we make a move, we'll be able to kill Zhou Xian right away and eliminate this great calamity for our Dao sect. The old man who was walking towards the second Daoist ruler stopped when he heard this. The third young lady shook her head. Go calm down first. The second Daoist ruler spoke ferociously. Third young lady, are you worthy of Master for treating a fellow disciple like this? I, the second Daoist ruler. Meanwhile, the third young lady suddenly swung her ruler, and a shadow of the ruler smashed against the second Daoist ruler. Bang! The second Daoist ruler's body instantly collapsed. The second Daoist ruler was stunned. The other experts of the Dao sect were stunned as well. That attack was a little too ruthless. The Dao physique wasn't something that could be cultivated in a short period of time. It was destroyed just like that. The third young lady gazed at the old man. Take him away. The old man didn't dare hesitate at all, and he immediately left with the second Daoist ruler's soul. Suddenly a ray of light flashed. It slashed straight at the second Daoist ruler. It was Zhou Xian who'd attacked. Moreover, he was using the soul-suppressing sword. However, the soul-suppressing sword was directly clamped by 2 fingers when it was still several hundred feet away from Dao Old Second. The third young lady made her move. The third young lady flicked her jade-like fingers and the soul-suppressing sword flew back to Yi Xian. Third Miss looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, my Dao faction's people will be dealt with by my Dao faction. There's no need to trouble yourself. As she spoke, she raised her head to look at the clouds in the sky. Both of you, our Dao Gate can't afford to play this game. We'll be leaving. I hope both of you can be magnanimous. After saying that, she turned around and left with the experts from the Dao sect. Yi Xian turned to look at the clouds. Who was that? Above the clouds, the mysterious woman beside Nian Nian smiled and said, "Looks like this sect isn't completely useless." Nian Nian licked the Tonghulu. "Is there still a chance?" The mysterious woman smiled and said, "Of course." Nian Nian said softly, "I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of which, is your goal to make the Dao sect in Yi Xian hostile?" The mysterious woman smiled and said, "Guess." Nian Nian looked down. "I know that the Dao sect can't kill him. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want him to destroy the Dao sect and form a bad relationship with the Dao sect's ancestor. I understand your intentions. I want to magnify the cause of misfortune on him." As she spoke, she turned to look at the mysterious woman. "I want to use the cause of misfortune on him to kill him." The mysterious woman smiled. "How smart." Nian Nian gave the mysterious woman a thumbs up. "Very smart." The mysterious woman smiled. "There's nothing we can do about it." Nian Nian suddenly said, "I'm a little curious about your identity." The mysterious woman smiled and said, "In the past I was a good person." As she said that, she looked into the distant horizon. "They should be here soon." Below, as the third Miss left with the experts from the Dao sect, some of the experts who came to help the Dao sect felt a little awkward. Because the Dao sect didn't bring them along. When they wanted to leave with the Dao sect, the experts of the fifth dimension stopped them, and the Dao sect didn't make a move. This was a little awkward. In fact, they wanted to escape at first, but after seeing the third Miss, they felt that the Dao sect was enough. So they all stayed. However, what they didn't expect was that the third Miss would directly leave with the people of the Dao sect. They didn't want to fight anymore. And now Yi Xian's people wouldn't let them go. Yi Xian glanced at the Consolidation Realm experts. There were still about 100 of them. At this time an old man walked out. The old man hesitated for a moment and then said, "Young Master Yi, we can guarantee that we will no longer be enemies with the fifth dimension. I wonder if young Master Yi can let us go?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "No." As his voice fell, the sword in his hand suddenly flew out. The old man's head directly flew out. Instant kill. Seeing Yi Xian make a move, the expressions of the remaining Consolidation Realm experts changed drastically. One of the middle-aged men suddenly said fiercely, "Since Yi Xian won't let us live, then we'll die together." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged out and the experts behind him charged out as well. Yi Xian's face was expressionless. "Kill. Leave no one alive. Leave no one alive." As soon as Yi Xian's voice fell, the experts behind him directly rushed out, as well as the 20 super assassins from Xian City. In order to reduce the losses, Yi Xian also attacked. Very quickly, bloody heads rained down from the sky. Massacre. Without the experts of the Dao sect, although these Consolidation Realm experts were strong, they were far inferior to the fifth dimension in both quantity and quality. This was especially true for Yi Xian. Almost none of the Consolidation Realm experts present could withstand his instant kill sword. Once the sword was drawn, there would be death. In a short while, all the 100 or so people present were killed, and their souls were absorbed by Yi Xian's soul-suppressing sword. After absorbing those souls, the soul-suppressing sword directly returned to the prison pagoda. It was going to break through. Just when everyone thought that the matter was about to end, in the starry sky of the fifth dimension, a powerful pressure like a mountain crushed over. Boom. The entire starry sky of the fifth dimension directly trembled. Below, Yi Xian suddenly raised his head, and there was a trace of shock in his eyes. What a powerful aura. Who is this? P.S. This month is about to end. If you don't vote now, you won't have the chance to vote again. Hehe. Chapter 1470. Who is it? At this moment, all the experts in the surroundings were looking up at the starry sky. That aura was so formidable that it shocked them. Under everyone's gazes, the space in the sky suddenly split open. In the next moment, a middle-aged man walked out from within the space that had split open. The middle-aged man wore a gray robe with wide sleeves, and his hands were hidden within them. He seemed like a scholar, quiet and refined. Xian frowned slightly because he didn't recognize the middle-aged man. Suddenly, a voice resounded in Xian's mind. Wu Li, the martial emperor. It was Lan Ruo's voice. The martial emperor. Xian's eyes narrowed slightly when he heard this. He knew who it was. It was that big shot who imprisoned Jiaolong and the others. Xian was quite puzzled. Why has he made an appearance at this moment? Wu Li looked down at Xian and said, "Where's that woman?" "Jiao Lu." Xian was about to speak when Jiao Lu appeared by Xian's side. At this moment Jiao Lu had attained the peak of the Dao attainment realm under the full support of the fifth dimension. It could be said that she was only a little bit away from attaining the Union realm. Jiao Lu stared Wu Li in the eyes without a trace of fear. Conversely, her eyes were filled with killing intent. Could be said that it was like the eyes of an enemy that had met. Meanwhile, Wu Li suddenly slapped his palm down. The space in the sky above Jiao Lu collapsed. At practically the exact same moment, Jiao Lu smashed her fist forward. She was going head-on against it. She had no choice but to go head-on against it because Wu Li's punch had sealed off the space around her. Rumble. Along with a deafening explosion, the space where Jiao Lu stood collapsed and she was instantly pushed back thousands of meters. As soon as she stopped moving, the dragon scales on her body cracked inch by inch. Not only that, but even her Dao body shattered at this moment. Everyone in the surroundings was shocked when they witnessed this scene. Right at this moment, Wu Li smashed his fist forward again. The space in front of Jiao Lu collapsed and a fist mark flashed out heading straight for Jiao Lu. The powerful fist force was like a tsunami, directly crushing the space in front of Jiao Lu and deforming it. Jiao Lu's pupils constricted. She couldn't block this punch. Jiao Lu did not close her eyes. Even at this moment, there was no fear in her eyes. Right at this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly slashed down. Boom. The fist mark was forced to a stop by the sword light, but the next moment the sword light shattered and the fist mark broke through the air. Meanwhile, Xian appeared in front of Jiao Lu, and a trace of ferocity flashed through his eyes as he slashed with his sword. He directly used the power of his bloodline and the power of the unparalleled sword. Boom. As soon as the sword descended, the fist collapsed, and Xian and Jiao Lu were instantly blasted back over 3 kilometers. After stopping, Xian's entire right hand trembled slightly. In the sky, Wu Li looked at Xian. "Do you think that I don't dare to kill you?" Xian looked Wu Li in the eyes. "I promised a senior from the Jia Dragon clan that I would take care of Miss Jiao Lu. I Xian keep my word." Wu Li nodded. "I know that you have many powerful backers, but..." Xian suddenly said, "I'll fight you one-on-one." "One-on-one?" Wu Li's eyes narrowed slightly. "Fight me one-on-one?" Xian looked Wu Li in the eyes. "I don't know what enmity you have with the Jia Dragons and I don't want to know. I'll fight you one-on-one and I, Xian, will take over the enmity between you and the Jia Dragons." A trace of gratification flashed through the eyes of the mysterious woman in the clouds, and she smiled. At least he's responsible. He didn't bring shame to his parents. Nian Nian gazed into the distance in silence. In the distance, behind Xian, Jiao Lu tugged on Xian's sleeve and shook her head. Xian smiled. "I promised your grandfather that I would protect you. I keep my word." Then Jiao Lu looked at Xian. "This enmity is between me, Jiao Lu, and him." Xian said, "The Jia Dragons have been kind to me." Jiao Lu said in a low voice, "He's very strong." Xian smiled. "One can't be ungrateful." As he spoke, he raised his head to look at Wu Li. "What do you think?" Wu Li looked at Xian. "It's not fair for you to fight me one-on-one." Xian said, "Then lower your realm and fight me." The crowd. In the clouds, the mysterious woman suddenly laughed. "This little fellow is really interesting. This Wu Li is really unlucky to have encountered such a thick-skinned fellow." In the distance, Wu Li looked at Xian. "What if I don't lower my realm?" Xian smiled. "Then I'll challenge someone of a higher realm. It's not shameful if I lose and it's a huge profit if I win." Everyone had a strange expression on their faces. Needless to say, this was indeed the case. Wu Li slowly walked towards Xian. With every step he took, his aura became weaker. When he was several dozen feet away from Xian, his realm had already been suppressed to the consolidation realm. Wu Li looked at Xian. "Suppressing to the consolidation realm is my limit." Xian smiled. "That's enough." As his voice fell, he suddenly raised his sword and rushed forward. In front of Wu Li, the space was suddenly torn apart and a ray of sword light appeared. Wu Li slightly leaned to the side and a sword passed right between his eyebrows. At this time his right hand suddenly swept out. Bang! A ray of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian instantly retreated thousands of feet. The moment he stopped, the flesh in front of his chest split open and blood flowed out. Seeing this scene, the expressions of many experts in the fifth dimension sank. Yi Xian looked at his chest and his expression gradually became solemn. This martial emperor's moves were very simple: speed and power. In terms of speed and power, he was suppressed. At this time, Wu Li took a step forward, and with this step, a fist imprint suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was already prepared and he raised his sword and slashed. Bang! The space where Yi Xian was directly collapsed and his entire body was sent several thousand feet back. Before he could stop, Wu Li took another step forward and with each step he threw a punch. It was a very simple punch. At this time in the distance, Yi Xian suddenly stomped his right foot. In the next instant he gripped his sword with both hands and fiercely slashed forward. The moment his sword fell, 4 kinds of domains directly enveloped Wu Li. Bang! Within the domains, the fist imprint directly shattered and Wu Li retreated several dozen feet. Seeing this scene, the experts of the fifth dimension immediately breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that there was still a fight. In the distance, Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. 4 kinds of domains. Yi Xian nodded. Wu Li said in a light voice, "I'm slightly surprised." As he spoke, he took another step forward. Bang! The space in front of Yi Xian suddenly collapsed and in the next moment an afterimage flashed by. The strength of this afterimage was so strong that even 4 kinds of domains found it difficult to suppress it. Right at this moment, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes and in the next moment he suddenly slashed down with his sword. As this sword descended, Wu Li's pupils suddenly constricted, and he changed from offense to defense. He raised his right arm horizontally to block. Bang! Under the gazes of everyone, Wu Li retreated explosively by several hundred feet. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. What kind of power is this? In the distance, Bai Dizzy was slightly excited. He knew what kind of power this was. The power of faith. This was the power of faith of all the living beings in the fifth dimension. And now Yi Xian was using this power of faith. The purest power of faith. At this moment, Yi Xian wasn't alone. He represented everyone who believed in him. The power of faith. Above the clouds, the mysterious woman. She said in a light voice, "Very pure power of faith." Behind her, the Divine Lord's expression was extremely gloomy. Nian Nian looked into the distance and still didn't speak, but there was a trace of gratification in her eyes. She knew that the reason Yi Xian was able to possess such pure power of faith was because the living beings in the fifth dimension trusted him. In other words, Yi Xian was sufficiently good to all the living beings in the fifth dimension. In the distance, Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. The power of faith. Yi Xian grinned. "Take another strike from me." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward, twisted his wrist and slashed down with his sword. A ray of sword light tore through the sky. In the distance, Wu Li suddenly clenched his right hand, and then he smashed his fist forward. Bang! The space where his fist descended directly transformed into a vortex, and a powerful force poured out like a torrent. At this moment, the heavens and earth shook and split. Rumble. As soon as the 2 powerful forces came into contact, it was like a volcanic eruption. The powerful force swept across the entire world, and the expressions of the surrounding consolidation realm experts changed drastically and they all retreated. Below, a huge light screen suddenly rose from the Dao city. A protective shield. This was a protective shield built by the Xuanji sect with all their might. It was to prevent the powerful forces from entering the fifth dimension and causing a devastating blow to the fifth dimension. The remaining power was completely blocked by the protective barrier. However, the entire protective barrier was also shattered. In the sky, Wu Li retreated more than 300 feet, but Yi Xian didn't even take a step back. At this time, Yi Xian not only had the blessing of 4 kinds of domains, but also the power of faith of the fifth dimension. His current strength had exceeded the scope of the consolidation realm. Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. He knew that if he didn't restore his realm with his current strength, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Yi Xian. He had underestimated this young man in front of him. Yi Xian suddenly said, Your Excellency Martial Emperor, today I Yi Xian took advantage of you and this is quite unfair to you. How about this, in a year let's fight again. At that time you don't have to suppress your realm. Fight more. Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. You want to delay for a year? Yi Xian nodded, yes. Wu Li's expression was calm. Do you really have to interfere in the affairs of the Naga Dragon clan? Yi Xian said, I have to repay the kindness of others. Wu Li stared at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian said again, just 1 year. A year later I Yi Xian will fight you fairly. I can swear to the heavens that if there are people behind me, I won't let them interfere. Do you think it's feasible? Wu Li slowly loosened his right hand. A year later, life and death. A life and death. Yi Xian said, sure. Wu Li glanced at Jia Lu. Your grandfather found a good person for you. With that he turned and left. After walking a few steps, he suddenly turned his head and looked at a certain place in the clouds. Your Excellency, as you wish. With that he quickly disappeared not far away. Above the clouds, Nian Nian suddenly said, congratulations. The mysterious woman blinked. What are you congratulating me for? Nian Nian looked at the mysterious woman. If Wu Li wants to kill Jia Lu, he will need your help, because he will soon discover that his opponent will grow very quickly, so quickly that it will exceed his expectations. At that time, even if he is unwilling, he can only ask for help from you. And if he asks for help from you, then isn't the entire ultimate martial realm in your pocket? And with your intelligence you should not be plotting just this. If I'm not wrong, the ultimate martial realm is not simple. What do you think? The mysterious woman looked at Nian Nian and after a moment she suddenly smiled and said, if it wasn't for that kid below, I would be very willing to be friends with you because you are too smart. Unfortunately we can only be enemies. Nian Nian took out a stick of Tonghulu. You made a move, now it's my turn. The mysterious woman slightly raised the corner of her mouth. Looking forward to it. Chapter 1471. With Wu Li's departure the entire fifth dimension completely calmed down. There were no cheers. Because the fifth dimension had also suffered heavy casualties. In the sky, Yi Xian looked up at the clouds in the sky. The next moment he appeared directly above the clouds. However, there was nothing here. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned around and left. After returning to Dao City's Dao Hall, Nian Nian was sitting on the stone steps in front of the hall. She was holding a Tonghulu in her hand. Yi Xian walked in front of Nian Nian. Nian Nian looked up at Yi Xian. Is it over? Yi Xian smiled. It's over for now. Nian Nian grinned. She took out a lively fish. Grilled fish. Yi Xian laughed. All right. As he spoke he pulled Nian Nian into the hall. Grilled fish. The two sat next to each other. Nian Nian hugged Yi Xian's arm and leaned her head against Yi Xian's shoulder. There was a sweet smile on her face. At this moment Bai Dizzy walked into the hall. Looking at the White Emperor, Yi Xian said with a smile, have a seat. Bai Dizzy shook her head. I'll just stand. Yi Xian did not insist. Let's talk. Bai Dizzy hesitated for a moment. Do you still have money? Hearing this, Yi Xian was dumbfounded. He said in shock, you ran out of money? Bai Dizzy nodded. I've basically spent all the money you gave me. Yi Xian blinked. All spent? 3 billion. Bai Dizzy nodded slightly. Yi Xian was a little curious. How did you spend it? He knew that Bai Dizzy was usually not extravagant. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, those pills were basically given to the most outstanding people. As for these fortune divine crystals, they have many uses. Among them I used 1 billion fortune divine crystals to support the world below. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. The world below? Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, it's just some low-level worlds. These worlds are very, very backward. Then I used your name to establish a few martial arts academies in these backward worlds. The name of the academy is called Fifth Dimensional Academy and you are the dean. Those who meet certain requirements can enter the martial arts academy for free. Based on preliminary estimates, we have already established more than 1 million fifth dimensional academies. Moreover, we are still expanding. This expenditure is extremely large, but it is extremely meaningful. Yi Xian said, tell me. Bai Dizzy nodded. There are two main reasons why the five-dimensional universe is lagging behind other worlds. The first is the upper limit. What is the upper limit? This is the martial arts civilization of our five-dimensional universe. Before there was the Tao scripture, Other than the five-dimensional Tendo, the ceiling of the five-dimensional universe's martial Dao was release 1, and it was a fake release 1. But now it is different. We have the Dao scripture, and with the addition of the whirling world, our current upper limit is no different from the Dao sect. But what about the lower limit? Some of the worlds below the five-dimensional universe are too backward. Some of them are even in the Savage era. My idea is very simple. We will establish fifth-dimensional academies in various places to give those backward worlds a chance to learn martial arts, and also give them a chance to change their destiny. When there are more and more outstanding people, it will be much easier for us to change the entire five-dimensional universe. After saying this, he paused, then continued, of course there is also some selfishness. I established the fifth-dimensional academy in your name. Can be said that as long as someone comes out of our academy, they will be your student. And these people will worship you like a god. The more students there are, the more power of belief you will have. This is a win-win situation. The most important thing is that we can also unearth more talents. Some people, it is not that they do not have the ability, it is not that they do not work hard, it is just that they do not have the opportunity, they do not have the platform. If we give them the opportunity and platform, they will not be worse than anyone else. Xian pondering. Bai Dizzy hesitated for a while, then said, this matter is my own initiative. Xian smiled and said, you think too much. You have done very well. I have to say, in terms of the overall situation, we are inferior to you. As for the matter of money, I will think of a way. Bai Dizzy nodded. If you say so, then I can rest assured. There is one more thing, and that is, I have collected the martial arts books of the Daoting and Saha world. These martial arts books and divine techniques, I have already ordered people to compile them. When the time comes, they will be stored in the various academies. As long as you meet the requirements, you will be able to cultivate. However, for the time being, Dao scriptures, martial arts, and Dao scripture cultivation methods will be placed in our Dao City's fifth-dimensional academy. The Dao City's fifth-dimensional academy is the main academy. This place will be the holy land in the hearts of all the students of the fifth-dimensional academy. Everyone will strive to cultivate in order to come here. Because only by coming here can you learn the legendary Dao scripture martial arts and Dao scripture mental cultivation methods. The most important thing is, only by coming here can you see the mysterious Dean. Xian, Bai Dizzy smiled faintly, if you want to come here it will be very, very difficult. It can be said that among millions of people, only one person can come here because we only recruit 30 people every year. At that time, when the headquarters starts to recruit, you must personally come to take a look. You will definitely be shocked. Because those who can come to the headquarters must be super evildoers. Those kind of true super evildoers. Xian smiled and said, I am looking forward to it. As he said this, he hesitated for a while, then said, everything you have done is very good, but in terms of culture. Bai Dizzy smiled and said, don't worry, all the academies cultivate both literature and martial arts. Cultivating literature, which is also cultivating the mind, is equally important as cultivating martial arts. Xian nodded. You have thought it through very thoroughly. As he said this, he looked at Nian Nian, who was beside him. Nian Nian's contribution to the five-dimensional universe being able to have what it is today is indispensable. Her contribution to the five-dimensional universe should be known by everyone in the five-dimensional universe. Bai Dizzy glanced at Nian Nian and nodded. I know in cultural classes, there is an article about a person's biography. Only people who have made great contributions to the five-dimensional universe can be included in this article. Currently there are only two people, one is Miss Nian Nian and the other is you. Miss Nian Nian is ranked first and you are ranked second. In addition, we have also built Miss Nian Nian's memorial courtyards all over the world, which have detailed records of Miss Nian Nian's contributions to the five-dimensional universe. Xian looked at Bai Dizzy and said with a smile, you are really thoughtful. Bai Dizzy said softly, whether it is Miss Nian Nian or you, even if what you have done for the five-dimensional universe is not praised by the world, it should not be forgotten by the world. In fact, the five-dimensional universe was a burden to both Xian and Nian Nian. As long as Mu Nian Nian gave up on the five-dimensional universe, other than the three swords, she was almost invincible. To Nian Nian, without the five-dimensional universe, she would be even stronger. As if he had thought of something, Bai Dizzy said, one more thing, we have already formulated a law. As long as you nod your head, it can be implemented in the entire five-dimensional universe. As he said that, he took out a thick book and handed it to Xian. Yi Xian took it and glanced at it. A moment later he looked at Bai Dizzy. Is this law only for the people at the bottom or for everyone? Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. For everyone. Including you. Even you don't have the privilege. Yi Xian nodded. Then that's enough. After saying that he handed the book to Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy took the book and said, then I'll start implementing it. Yi Xian nodded. Bai Dizzy retreated. Yi Xian handed the roasted fish to Nian Yan and said with a smile, eat. Nian Yan took the roasted fish and said with a smile, I'm going out to play. After saying that she picked up the roasted fish and left the hall. Only Yi Xian was left in the hall. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and spread his hands. Suddenly, a mysterious power appeared around him. The power of faith. He could feel that his power of faith was continuously becoming stronger. This power of faith was very strong. If not for this power of faith he would not have been able to do anything to Wu Li. However, he also understood that this power did not completely belong to him, Yi Xian. This was given to him by all living beings. If one day he went against the flow and the five-dimensional universe collapsed, then this power of faith would disappear. He could not rely too much on this power of faith. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian took out a scroll. This was the content and notes of the 9th volume of the Dao scripture. It also contained the 9th volume of the Dao scripture's mental cultivation method and Dao scripture martial arts. Life Fist. The 9th volume of the Dao scripture martial arts was Life Fist. When he saw the content of this Life Fist, Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed. What was Life Fist? By burning one's lifespan as the price, one could obtain endless lifespan power. Lifespan power. This was the first time Yi Xian heard of this power. By burning 1 year of lifespan one could obtain 10 years of cultivation. By burning 100 years, one could obtain 1,000 years of cultivation. By burning 1,000 years, one could obtain 10,000 years of cultivation. Not only that, when burning one's lifespan, one could also trigger one's own destiny power. Yi Xian closed the ancient book and could not calm down for a long time. This thing could not be easily cultivated. This Life Fist was extremely profound and mysterious. It also involved the power of destiny and some karma power. In any case, he did not understand it. Most importantly, this thing needed to burn one's lifespan. And he, Yi Xian, did not have much lifespan left. His current lifespan was less than 1,000 years. If he burned his lifespan, he was afraid that he would directly die. Moreover, this Life Fist was not something he could cultivate just because he wanted to. It was extremely difficult. Not to mention, one of the difficulties was the physical body. His physical body must be at the consolidation realm before he could reluctantly cultivate it. Reluctantly. If his physical body was not strong enough, he would not be able to withstand the power obtained by burning his lifespan. In addition, his divine soul must be strong enough. It could be said that this Life Fist had very strict requirements for the cultivator. Yi Xian hesitated. There was no doubt about the power of this Life Fist. Once it was cultivated, its power would not be any weaker than his instant kill sword or even stronger. Most importantly, he could combine both of them. After burning his lifespan to obtain the power of life, he could use the instant kill sword again. In that case, it could be said that his strength and speed would reach a very terrifying level. However, burning one's lifespan was really not a joke. Moreover, it could be addictive. Because the more lifespan burned, the stronger the power. There was no upper limit. The moment of death was also the moment when he was at his strongest. After a long time, Yi Xian finally chose to cultivate it. However, in order to cultivate this Life Fist, he had to first improve his physical body to the consolidation realm. And now, if he wanted to advance to the consolidation realm, he needed the ancestral dragon's blood. And the ancestral dragon's blood could only be obtained by Taoism. Would Taoism give it to him? Of course not. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian said softly, "This time Taoism besieged my five-dimensional universe. No matter what, they should compensate me for my mental damage." After saying that, he suddenly got up and left. P.S. New month, ask for a few guaranteed monthly tickets to save face. Otherwise it would be too ugly. PZW. Chapter 1472. Dao Sect. Somewhere in the hall, Third Lady was sitting cross-legged on the ground. In front of her was a long ruler. Dao Gate ruler. Inside the hall there were some Dao Sect experts. At this moment, everyone's expression was somewhat ugly. In this trip to the fifth dimension, Dao Sect could be said to have suffered a great defeat. This time, Daoist's losses were too heavy. At this moment, Third Lady suddenly opened her eyes. The next moment she disappeared. In the sky outside the hall, Third Lady appeared in front of a man. This man was Zhou Xian. Seeing Third Lady, Zhou Xian was secretly on guard. This woman was not simple, he must be careful. Third Lady looked at Zhou Xian. What's the matter? Zhou Xian nodded. Third Lady asked, what's the matter? Zhou Xian thought for a moment, then said, your Dao sect besieged me, causing indelible damage to my young mind. Shouldn't you compensate me for my mental damage? Third Lady looked at Zhou Xian. Are you serious? Zhou Xian nodded. Third Lady said, you want the ancestral dragon's blood. Zhou Xian blinked, he was a little surprised. How do you know? Third Lady said again, you want to cultivate life fist. Zhou Xian. Third Lady asked again, are you sure you want to cultivate life fist? Zhou Xian nodded. Third young lady said, I have to remind you that even in our Taoism, only 2 people have practiced this Taoist scripture martial art. Zhou Xian frowned. 2 people? Third Lady nodded. Pastor and me. Zhou Xian blinked. Third Lady has cultivated life fist? Third Lady looked at Zhou Xian. Is there a problem? Zhou Xian hesitated, then said, is it powerful? Third Lady looked at Zhou Xian. Do you want to try? Zhou Xian quickly shook his head. No need. What a joke. He couldn't even defeat this woman without using her life punch. If she used her life punch, his Taoist body would probably be blasted into smithereens. Third young lady said, it's impossible for you to learn this life fist by yourself. In other words, you have to take a lot of detours. Do you want me to teach you? Zhou Xian was stunned, and then he said, you'll teach me? The third young lady nodded. If you want, I can teach you. Zhou Xian was puzzled. Why? The third young lady turned her head and looked into the distance. Do you want to go for a walk? Zhou Xian thought about it and nodded. Sure. Third young lady nodded and walked to the right. Zhou Xian followed her. Not long after, the 2 of them arrived at the back of a mountain. There was a Xiaodao at the back of the mountain, and at the end of the Xiaodao was a cliff. The 2 of them walked along the Xiaodao. Third young lady suddenly said, young Master Yi, the reason why my second senior brother targeted you like a madman is because you have the Dao scriptures. He's afraid that you'll collect all 9 Dao scriptures and threaten his position. Of course, there's another reason. All these years, the Taoists have been used to being high and mighty. He thinks that the Taoists are number 1 in the world and no one can offend them. Moreover, he's being used by someone. Zhou Xian frowned slightly. Used by someone? Third young lady turned her head and looked at young Master Yi. Young Master Yi, you have a very powerful enemy. How powerful is he? I think that if the other party wants to kill you, you won't be able to survive. However, I don't understand why the other party didn't kill you. Perhaps it's because he's afraid of the person behind you. Zhou Xian said in a deep voice, who is that person? Third young lady shook her head. I don't know him and I don't want to know him. This is a matter between young Master Yi and the other party. My Taoist doesn't want to interfere. Zhou Xian didn't say anything. He had some doubts in his heart. Who is this enemy? Third young lady said again, young Master Yi, if you want to learn life fist, I can help you. I can even help you improve your physical body to the consolidation realm. Zhou Xian looked at third young lady. What's the condition? Third young lady smiled slightly. The grudge between the 5th dimension and the Taoists will be written off. Zhou Xian was silent. Third young lady continued, young Master Yi, your enemy isn't my Taoists and my Taoist's enemy isn't you. However, someone wants my Taoist to fight to the death with you and then let you and my Taoist, or rather, let you and Master form a bad relationship. However, I feel that there's no need for us to become enemies. First, we don't have any conflict of interest. Second, we don't have any deep hatred. The reason for this situation, other than being used by others, is because my second senior brother's IQ is limited. And now I'm in charge of the Taoists. Zhou Xian asked, what about second brother? Third young lady said, he has been imprisoned by me. He won't appear for at least 100 years. And after 100 years, if young Master Yi hasn't fallen, I think second senior brother shouldn't pose any threat to young Master Yi. What do you think? Zhou Xian asked with a smile, can't you tell me who that mysterious person is? Third young lady said with a smile, my Taoists can't afford to offend him. Please forgive me, young Master Yi. Zhou Xian was about to speak, but he found that he had already walked to the edge of the cliff. Under the cliff, clouds and mist lingered, making it unfathomable. Third young lady gently pointed with her finger. The clouds and mist below suddenly separated. The next moment Yi Xian saw a behemoth. Dragon. To be precise, it was a dragon's head. This dragon's head was at the bottom of the abyss. Its body followed the abyss for an unknown length. The moment this dragon's head appeared, Yi Xian suddenly felt an oppressive pressure. Dragon's might. He had never felt such a strong dragon's might. Compared to this pressure, the winged dragon in Xian City was simply child's play. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Ancestral dragon." Third young lady nodded. "Only the ancestral dragon's blood can improve your current Dao body." Yi Xian looked at third young lady. "This dragon has fallen?" Third young lady nodded. Yi Xian was a little curious. "How did it fall?" Third young lady said with a smile, "I don't know either." Yi Xian was speechless. Third young lady looked at the ancestral dragon below. "At that time I was still young. I only know that after Master brought it back it fell not long after. As for the reason, Master never said. After this dragon fell, Master guarded it for 3 months. 3 months later he left, and after that there was no news of him." Saying that, she shook her head. "Young Master Yi, my Dao faction has no intention of becoming enemies with you. My Dao faction can't afford to offend you. Now that I am in charge of the Dao faction, I want to settle the grudge between us with young Master Yi." Yi Xian said softly, "Third young lady, aren't you afraid that I will summon the great Dao spirit and threaten your position?" Third young lady chuckled. "If that's the case, I can't wait to be happy." Yi Xian was a little curious. "Why?" Third young lady looked at Yi Xian. "If you really get the recognition of the great Dao spirit, it means that you are the person appointed by Master, and you will also be a part of my Dao faction. With a genius like you joining, I naturally should be happy. As for the Dao faction's master, to put it bluntly, what's the use of that position? Second senior brother spent a lot of effort to fight for the position. As long as I want to, I can take it back at any time." Saying that, she shook her head. "Second senior brother doesn't understand the principle that strength is the king. Whatever position, it's all empty." Yi Xian looked at third young lady. "If I really get the recognition of the great Dao spirit, are you really willing to let me be the Dao faction's master?" Third young lady nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian said, "Without the recognition of the great Dao spirit?" Third young lady smiled. "No." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. "Why?" Third young lady smiled slightly. "If you have the recognition of the great Dao spirit, it means that you have obtained Master's recognition. Since you have obtained Master's recognition, Dao faction should naturally share honor and disgrace with you, live and die together. However, if you don't get the recognition of the great Dao spirit, it means that you have not obtained Master's recognition. In this case, I naturally can't use the entire Dao faction's future to help you. Moreover, you can't take the initiative to join Dao faction, right?" Yi Xian said with a smile. "I see. The Dao faction's ancestors' opinion is the most important." Third young lady nodded. "Just like second senior brother, although I also want to kill him, he is Master's disciple after all. Even if I don't give face to a monk, I still have to give face to Buddha, so I can't be too ruthless. However, young Master Yi can rest assured that from now on he will not appear in front of young Master Yi again. This I can guarantee." Yi Xian looked at the ancestor dragon below and was silent. In fact, he was very clear that the reason why third young lady was so humble was not because of Yi Xian, but because she was afraid of the person behind him. Moreover, she did not want to be used by others. Third young lady looked down and was also silent. She wanted to resolve the grievances between the five-dimensional universe and Dao faction because Dao faction really had no reason to fight with Yi Xian. Moreover, Yi Xian being able to gather all 9 Dao scriptures was very abnormal. In her opinion, it was very likely that Yi Xian was the person chosen by her master. However, she was not sure because the great Dao spirit had run away. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Third young lady, let's talk about life fist." Third young lady glanced at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Let's talk about Dao body first. Young Master Ye's Dao body cultivation is indeed very good, but his realm is a bit low. For young Master Yi, the Dao body of achieved Dao realm should be somewhat insufficient." As she said this, she looked down and said, "Young Master Ye's bloodline is overbearing. It is enough to absorb the ancestor dragon's blood, so it should not be a big problem for him to improve. Also, this ancestor dragon scale armor is extremely hard. I can give young Master Yi a few pieces and let young Master Yi forge them into treasured armor. This way, except for some mysterious experts, it should be impossible for ordinary people to kill young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked at third young lady. Mysterious experts? Third young lady nodded. For example, the white-robed woman behind young Master Yi. Yi Xian said with a smile. Why don't you use a different analogy? Third young lady smiled slightly. It can't be helped. I'm weak and can't afford to offend others. Please forgive me, young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled, then looked down and narrowed his eyes. Who was it that made third young lady so afraid? Who was it that wanted to mess with him? At this moment, third young lady suddenly said, Young Master Yi, let's go down. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and nodded, okay. Soon the two of them walked towards the bottom of the abyss. Somewhere in the starry sky, a little girl walked slowly. The little girl held a skewer of tonghulu in her left hand and a grilled fish in her right. This little girl was Nian. After walking for an unknown period of time, the starry sky in front of Nian suddenly shook violently and a voice came from it. The three-dimensional universe does not welcome outsiders. Leave immediately. Nian looked at the space in front of her. Yi Xian. After a moment of silence, that expansive space suddenly split open, and then a woman walked out from within. The woman was dressed in a white dress and held a halberd in her hand. Her expression was indifferent. Chapter 1473. Seeing this woman, Nian's eyes flashed with surprise. This woman is so strong. This was her first impression. The woman looked at Nian. Yi Xian? Nian nodded. The woman asked, Who are you? Nian smiled. Let me tell you slowly. On the other side, ultimate martial realm. On a certain mountain peak, Wuli suddenly opened his eyes. Not far in front of him stood a woman. It was the mysterious woman from the sacred land. Wuli looked at the mysterious woman. You want me to kill Yi Xian? The mysterious woman shook her head and smiled. No. You can't kill him. Wuli frowned. The person behind him? The mysterious woman nodded and smiled. Do you see the woman who stood with me that day? Wuli was silent. The mysterious woman said, That's the fifth dimension Tendo. Wuli said, I know. The mysterious woman smiled. The reason why you agreed to Yi Xian's 1-year appointment is mainly because of her. Because you know with her around you can't kill Yi Xian, right? Wuli looked at the mysterious woman. What are you trying to do? The mysterious woman smiled. How confident do you think you are after 1 year? Wuli was silent. How confident? In fact, he really wasn't confident. His current realm was crushing Yi Xian, but Yi Xian's combat power wasn't weak at all. Moreover, Yi Xian's growth speed was too fast. 1 year later, was he really confident? At this moment, the mysterious woman suddenly smiled. Do you want to know what realm is above the god realm? Wu Li's pupils suddenly shrank. He looked at the mysterious woman. Who are you? The mysterious woman smiled. I can't answer this question. Wu Li said in a deep voice. Sir, with your strength, if you want to kill Yi Xian, it should be a piece of cake. Why do you want me to do it? The mysterious woman shook her head. Not yet. Wu Li frowned. Why? The mysterious woman smiled and said, Because that woman is still quite close to here. I need her to speed up, or rather, I need his disaster cause to speed up. Because there are too many people helping him now, his disaster cause's progress is a bit slow. Wu Li stared at the mysterious woman. You don't dare to kill him openly. The mysterious woman smiled and said, That's not something you should worry about. This time I came to ask you a question. Are you willing to let go of Jiaolu of the Jialong tribe? If you are willing to let go of this hatred, I will never come looking for you again. If you're not willing, we can work together. Wu Li was silent. The mysterious woman smiled. It seems that you are unwilling to let go of your hatred. As she spoke, she tapped with her finger, and an ancient scroll appeared before Wu Li. This scroll can allow you to advance a step further. With that, she turned around and left. Wu Li remained silent on the spot. A moment later, he opened the ancient book, and his expression gradually turned solemn. In the end, the solemn look in his eyes gradually turned into excitement. In the horizon, the mysterious woman walked towards the distance, and behind her was the sacred master. The sacred master hesitated for a moment and then said, Master, you want to nurture this Wu Li and let him fight against Yi Xian? The mysterious woman shook her head and smiled. I'm not interested in him but the ultimate martial realm. Ultimate martial realm. The sacred master was silent. To the entire ultimate martial realm, even the sacred master didn't know much. Even the sacred master didn't know much about it. He only knew that the ultimate martial realm had produced 6 martial emperors. After the Dao sect's ancestor disappeared, the ultimate martial realm instantly became the #1 power. But the sacred master didn't know anything about the situation inside the ultimate martial realm. The ultimate martial realm wasn't open to the outside world, and outsiders couldn't enter at all. This place was actually very mysterious. The mysterious woman turned around and glanced in the direction of the ultimate martial realm, and said with a smile, "This place isn't simple." With that she withdrew her gaze. "Let's go meet some old fellows." As she spoke she walked towards the distance. Before long the two of them disappeared into the distant horizon. Dao sect. Yi Xian and the third young lady arrived at the bottom of the abyss. Needless to say, Yi Xian was shocked by the abyss. To be more precise, he was shocked by the ancestral dragon. The abyss was truly bottomless, and they still hadn't reached the bottom after descending for almost 150 kilometers. Yi Xian still didn't know exactly how big the ancestral dragon was, because when he looked down from his position, the abyss was at least tens of thousands of km long. Right at this moment the third young lady suddenly stopped, and then she looked at the ancestral dragon and bowed slightly. "Sorry for the offense." As she spoke she pressed her fingers together and lightly swiped, and then a part of the ancestral dragon that didn't have scales split open and blood sprayed out. The third young lady gestured with her right hand, and all the blood fell into a white gourd in her hand. The ancestral dragon's blood. Yi Xian was slightly excited as he looked at the white gourd. He could sense how formidable the ancestral dragon's blood was, and it could be said that the Dark City's winged dragon couldn't compare to this enormous dragon at all. Meanwhile, the third young lady suddenly put away the gourd and then she passed it to Yi Xian. "Let's begin." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then he asked, "Is this enough?" The third young lady smiled. "If it's not enough then we can take more. In any case it's convenient." Yi Xian nodded and then he took the gourd. He opened it and a wave of heat assaulted his face. The ancestral dragon's blood was red like lava. Yi Xian looked at the third young lady. "Are we going to swallow it just like that?" The third young lady nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then he asked, "Will it be dangerous?" The third young lady sized up Yi Xian and said, "Your body should be able to endure it." Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he nodded. "All right." As he spoke he directly drank the ancestral dragon's blood. Bang! As soon as the blood entered his body, Yi Xian's clothes were instantly transformed into ash. At the same time his entire body actually started burning. The third young lady sized up Yi Xian's body and then she said, "Use the energy of your bloodline to suppress it." Yi Xian hurriedly activated the energy of his bloodline. As soon as he did, the energy of the ancestral dragon's blood was instantly suppressed. Yi Xian instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he witnessed this scene. If the energy of his bloodline wasn't able to suppress the ancestral dragon's blood, then he might be finished. Because he felt like his body was on the verge of being incinerated when the ancestral dragon's blood entered his body. The ancestral dragon's blood was too domineering. Even his Dao physique was unable to endure it. Fortunately, the energy of his bloodline was able to suppress the ancestral dragon's blood. Otherwise, his current Dao physique would really not dare to absorb the ancestral dragon's blood. Suddenly, the third young lady said, "Start absorbing the ancestral dragon's blood." Yi Xian nodded. He sat cross-legged on the ground and started to absorb the ancestral dragon's blood. The third young lady ceaselessly sized Yi Xian up, and it didn't take long for her gaze to descend onto a certain spot on Yi Xian's body. She shook her head. "Isn't that part of yours too ugly? What's the use of it?" Yi Xian was speechless. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to feel that the ancestral dragon's blood within his body had been completely absorbed. However, his body still hadn't changed at all. Yi Xian opened his eyes and gazed at the third young lady. The latter fell silent for a moment before she went to get another gourd of ancestral dragon's blood and passed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't hold back and he picked up the gourd and gulped it down. As soon as the gourd of ancestral dragon's blood entered his body, The formidable energy of dragon blood started to spread throughout Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian hurriedly utilized the energy of his bloodline to suppress it. About an hour later, Yi Xian opened his eyes again and gazed at the third young lady. The ancestral dragon's blood had been completely absorbed by him again. However, his body still hadn't changed much. The third young lady frowned. "How can you eat so much?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "I don't know either." As he spoke, he glanced at the huge ancestral dragon not far away. Then, "Third young lady, can you let me absorb more? Look at this dragon, it's huge." The third young lady glared at Yi Xian. "This dragon's blood is very precious." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "I know, but I don't think it's of much use for you to let me absorb so little. Look at me, my body hasn't changed at all." The third young lady thought for a moment and said, "Just you wait." As she spoke, she turned and left. After the third young lady left, Yi Xian's gaze fell on the ancestral dragon and his eyes lit up. This ancestral dragon's entire body was a treasure. Moreover, it was a priceless treasure. At this moment, the third young lady took out a large wooden bucket filled with dragon's blood. The third young lady looked at Yi Xian. "Drink it." Yi Xian blinked his eyes. "So much?" The third young lady said plainly, "I want to see how much you can absorb." Yi Xian smiled. He directly picked up the wooden bucket and drank it. As the dragon's blood entered Yi Xian's body gradually started to become red-hot like iron. There was finally a change. The third young lady heaved a sigh of relief. After all, the ancestral dragon's blood was very precious. One must know that there was only one ancestral dragon. Its blood would decrease every time it was used and it couldn't be regenerated. Under such circumstances, its blood was even more precious. Not to mention Yi Xian, even the internal members of Taoism would find it difficult to obtain the ancestral dragon's blood. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly emanated from Yi Xian's body. At the same time, his body directly burned. Yi Xian was shocked. He hurriedly activated the power of the bloodline in his body to suppress it. The third young lady suddenly said, "Don't just suppress it. Remember to absorb it. Also, circulate the Tao scripture's mental cultivation method. Let that mental cultivation method assist your bloodline power." Yi Xian nodded and hurriedly circulated the Tao scripture's mental cultivation method. Just like that, the ancestral dragon's blood in his body gradually calmed down and was absorbed by his body bit by bit. His body was also slowly changing. The third young lady just looked at Yi Xian. No one knew what she was thinking. Three-dimensional universe. The woman in the white dress and Nian Nian walked slowly. After a long time, Nian Nian turned to look at the woman in the white dress. "This is it." The woman in the white dress was silent for a moment. She slowly closed her eyes. "I know who that woman is." Nian Nian was a little curious. "Who?" The woman in the white dress opened her eyes and whispered, "If it's really her, then he's in danger." P.S. Many readers must have a lot of votes in their hands, but I don't dare to ask for it because I'm afraid of being scolded. Chapter 1474. Danger. Upon hearing the white-dressed woman's words, Nian Nian pulled out the tonghulu in her mouth and said, "I've been targeted by the cause of misfortune and can't make a move. If I make a move, it will be exactly what that woman wants, so..." At this point she looked at the white-dressed woman. "I'm here to look for you." The white-dressed woman fell silent. Nian Nian asked, "It's not convenient to make a move?" The white-dressed woman nodded. "It's not convenient. However, since it's her, I have to make a trip no matter what." Nian Nian nodded. "Thank you." After saying that, she glanced at the three-dimensional universe below. "No one is allowed to enter this place?" The white-dressed woman nodded. "Especially someone as powerful as you?" Nian Nian asked with a smile. "Why?" The white-dressed woman said, "To protect this universe." "Protect?" Nian Nian nodded. "Understood." The white-dressed woman looked at Nian Nian. "Go back first. I will appear when it's time." Nian Nian smiled. "All right." After saying that, she turned around and left. On the spot, the woman was silent for a moment before shaking her head. Doomed fate. After saying that, she turned around and left. Nian Nian did not return to the fifth dimension directly. Instead, she went to the nether hall in the fourth dimension. The hall was very quiet. Just as Nian Nian walked into the hall, a voice sounded from within. He caused trouble again? Nian Nian smiled. Sort of. The voice said, can't solve it. Nian Nian shook her head. I've already been targeted by the cause of misfortune. Once I make a move, the price will be too great. The voice said softly, perhaps he should be allowed to walk his own path. Nian Nian smiled. I want to. However, a mysterious woman has appeared. That woman is not someone he can contend against now. The voice said, what kind of woman? Nian Nian described. A moment later the voice said softly, so it's her? Nian Nian smiled. Seems that you all know her. The voice said, I know her and we used to be a little familiar. Nian Nian blinked. Is it really as she said? She's very close to Zhou Xian? The voice said, very close, very close. Nian Nian frowned. Then why did she do that? The voice sighed. It's complicated. Nian Nian smiled. So it's an old acquaintance of yours. What should we do? The voice was silent. Nian Nian licked the candied fruit and said, she wants to use the cause of disaster to kill him now, but I know that she definitely has a detailed plan. Once this plan succeeds, his life will really be in danger. The voice said, in terms of strength, besides the 3 swords, no one can kill her. In terms of intelligence, only Peony could compare to her. Should he look for Miss Ding? He might have a better idea. As for us, to tell you the truth, we've also encountered some problems and it's difficult for us to leave. Nian Nian suddenly smiled and said, there's no need. Since you're in a difficult position, let me do it. With that she turned around and left. The voice said, young miss, be careful of her. Since she's only acting against Zhou Xian now, then there's definitely a reason. Moreover, she definitely has a perfect plan once she makes a move. Nian Nian nodded. I know. The voice continued, don't let Tianming interfere in this matter. Nian Nian was a little curious. Why? After a moment of silence, the voice said, letting heavens will interfere will make things more complicated. It can cause internal strife here. Because apart from her brother, Tianming doesn't recognize anyone and dares to kill anyone. If it weren't for the green-robed man, she would have even killed Zhou Xian's mother. He would even kill us. She's unreasonable. Once she's angered, it'll be a disaster for the entire world. And if she destroys the world again, then the cause of disaster on Zhou Xian will really be unsolvable. Nian Nian said softly, is the cause of his disaster because of the plain-dressed woman and his father? The voice said, half of the reason is because of them. The 2 of them are untainted by all kinds of karma, but it doesn't mean that their closest relatives can do the same. It can be said that Zhou Xian is now taking the blame for them. And it's precisely because of this that Tianming doesn't dare to kill anymore. Otherwise, before she leaves, she would probably kill everyone who can threaten her. As she said that, she paused and said, actually her temper has changed a lot now. It's all because of him. Nian Nian was silent. In fact, she had guessed a long time ago that part of the cause of Zhou Xian's disaster was because of the plain-dressed woman and the green-robed man. It was because these 2 closest relatives of Zhou Xian were not good people. After a moment, Nian Nian suddenly said, I understand. After saying that, she turned and left. The voice said, I will find a way to contact Miss Ding and see if she has a way to resolve this feud. Also, Miss Nian, you must be careful when fighting with this woman. She may be more difficult to deal with than you think. Nian Nian smiled and said, I understand. After saying that, she disappeared at the end of the horizon. In the hall, a sigh sounded. Daoist. At the bottom of the abyss, Zhou Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. At that moment, a faint flame was emitting from his body. That was the dragon flame emitted by the ancestral dragon's blood. After drinking a full bottle of ancestral dragon's blood, his body finally changed. Most importantly, he had the 3rd young lady's guidance. He realized that the 3rd young lady's understanding of the Dao body far exceeded his. At the side, the 3rd young lady glanced at him and then turned and left. Now Zhou Xian had entered the final stage and it would not be long before he could break through. She still felt a little pained because Zhou Xian had absorbed too much ancestral dragon's blood. Every bit he absorbed meant a little less. The 3rd young lady left the abyss and came to the Dao prison. The Dao prison. This was the place where the Dao sect specially imprisoned disciples who had made mistakes. The 3rd young lady came in front of the Dao sect's 2nd brother, whose soul was currently locked by a flame. Seeing the 3rd young lady, the Dao sect's 2nd brother slowly closed his eyes. Are you here to laugh at me? The 3rd young lady shook her head. second senior brother, it seems that you haven't calmed down yet. After saying that, she turned and left. At that moment, the Dao sect's second brother suddenly said, "What are you afraid of?" The third young lady turned to look at the Dao sect's second brother and said with a smile, "Do you really think that the immortal realm is invincible?" The Dao sect's second brother looked at the third young lady. "I can kill Zhou Xian." The third young lady smiled slightly. "Under normal circumstances I can kill him, but what about after I kill him? Can the Dao sect withstand the revenge of the forces behind him? I know that we can. In our hearts, the Dao sect has always been invincible." The Dao sect's second brother was silent. The third young lady continued, "Have you ever thought about why we want to kill him? Just because he has the 9 scrolls of the Dao scripture? But did he forget what his master said? The Dao scripture is not the Dao scripture of the Dao sect, but the Dao scripture of the world. Anyone can learn his martial arts. What is his greatest wish? It is to exile the martial arts civilization in the Dao scripture for all ages so that everyone can learn it. But what about you? As soon as he left, you took the Dao scripture and everything about the Dao sect for yourself. Why doesn't the spirit of the Great Path admit it? It's very simple. Because your actions have already violated Master's original intentions." The Dao sect's second brother's face was gloomy and he did not speak. The third young lady continued, "Even now this Zhou Xian still thinks that the Dao sect can kill him. Do you know? If the Dao sect really touches him, the Dao sect will be doomed eternally." The Dao sect's second brother said in a deep voice, "What force is behind him?" The third young lady shook her head, "I don't know. I only know that it is definitely not a force that the Dao sect can afford to offend." Then she looked at the Dao sect's second brother, second senior brother, "Do you know why you can't reach the immortal state?" The Dao sect's second brother looked at the third young lady, and the third young lady said softly, "Because you care too much about the Dao scripture. Not only do you care about the Dao scripture, but you also care about power. You have taken the wrong path." After saying that, she turned around and left. When she reached the door, she stopped again, "Imprisoned for 100 years. If you can wake up within 100 years, you can reach the immortal state. If you can't and still live in hatred, then die." As she spoke, she had already disappeared. In the Dao prison, the Dao sect's second brother was silent. After the third young lady left the Dao prison, she looked up at the sky. At this moment, a shadow appeared behind her. The shadow bowed slightly. "Third young lady." The third young lady said softly, "Have you found out where she came from?" The shadow said in a deep voice, "I only know that she is from the holy ground, but I can't find out her identity." The holy ground. The third young lady slowly closed her eyes. "That woman wants to use the Dao sect as a tool." The shadow said in a deep voice, "Third young lady, do you want revenge?" The third young lady shook her head, "We are no match for her." The shadow hesitated for a moment, then said, "Is she that strong?" The third young lady said softly, "She is stronger than we thought. However, we can't let this matter go just like that. Doesn't she want to kill Zhou Xian? Then let's help Zhou Xian and make Zhou Xian stronger. Let's give her some trouble." After saying that, she turned around and left. At the bottom of the abyss, Zhou Xian suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with flames. At this moment, the third young lady appeared in front of Zhou Xian. She looked at Zhou Xian. "Congratulations." Zhou Xian stood up, clenched his fists, and the surrounding space directly shattered. Power. At this moment, Zhou Xian felt endless power. The power of the ancestral dragon's bloodline. Now, not only had his physical body reached the consolidation realm, but his power had also increased by at least 10 times. Most importantly, his physical body had reached the consolidation realm. Now, ordinary consolidation realm experts could not do anything to his physical body. As if thinking of something, Zhou Xian looked at the third young lady. "Third young lady, can I practice life fist now?" The third young lady nodded, "Yes. However, the lethality of this move is too great. Using it once is equivalent to hurting the enemy by 1,000 and hurting yourself by 800, or even hurting the enemy by 1,000 and hurting yourself by 2,000. So, are you sure you want to learn it?" Zhou Xian smiled, "Learn it." The third young lady nodded, "Follow me." After saying that, she turned around and left. Zhou Xian suddenly said, "Third young lady." The third young lady turned to look at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian hesitated, then said, "Didn't you say that you would give me the ancestral dragon's scale?" After saying that, he walked to the ancestral dragon's side, patted one of the thick scales and said with a smile, "I think this one is fine. If you don't mind, I will take it away." After saying that, he had already started to take it away. That was the ancestral dragon's reverse scale, the hardest part of the body. The third young lady was silent. Damn, how could this man be so shameless? Chapter 1475. Seeing that Yi Xian was really going to pull out the dragon scale, Third Miss hurriedly said, "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian turned to look at Third Miss and blinked. "Third Miss, there's no need to help me. I can do it myself." With that, he exerted force and plucked out the dragon scale. Third Miss was speechless. Yi Xian looked at the dragon scale. It wasn't particularly big, but it was abnormally strong. It was at least 4 to 5 times stronger than the other dragon scales around it. Good stuff. If this thing was made into armor, it would be equivalent to a Dao body. Yi Xian was very satisfied. At this moment, Third Miss suddenly said in a deep voice, "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian looked at Third Miss and smiled. "Third Miss, I won't take this dragon scale for free." Third Miss looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi wants to trade something with me?" Yi Xian nodded. "If Third Miss likes anything, as long as I have it, I can give it to you." Third Miss asked, "Really?" Yi Xian nodded. He wasn't afraid. He was poorer than the Dao sex anyway. Third Miss said, "I want some young Master Ye's blood." Yi Xian was stunned. "Pai blood?" Third Miss nodded. "Not much. 1 gourd is enough." Yi Xian's face darkened. "That's not much. 1 gourd. I'm not a dragon. If I let out a gourd of blood, I'm afraid I'll collapse." Third Miss said lightly, "Young Master Yi is unwilling?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, "Third Miss, why do you want my blood?" Third Miss smiled. "I have my uses." Yi Xian was silent. Third Miss smiled. "Young Master Yi is alive, but my ancestral dragon is dead. Young Master Ye's blood can be regenerated, but my ancestral dragon's blood can't be regenerated." "Young Master Yi," Yi Xian suddenly said, "Third Miss, 1 gourd of blood is too much. You're trying to drain me dry." Third Miss blinked. "Then just half a gourd. This gourd is so small. Half a gourd of blood won't have much effect on young Master Yi." Yi Xian was speechless. He suddenly realized that the dragon scale was a bit hot. The third young lady walked up to Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Hey I?" Yi Xian did not speak. He took out a gourd and started to bleed. Soon half of the gourd was filled with blood. Yi Xian. "Third Miss," said Yi. "Third Miss," Yi Xian said. "Third Xian." Yi Xian looked at third young lady. "Third young lady, what are you doing with my blood?" The third young lady smiled and said, "Don't worry, I won't use your blood recklessly. I just want to study it. Moreover, your blood might be helpful to my Daoist body." Yi Xian nodded. "Understood." The third girl put away the gourd. "Young Master Yi, let's go practice life fist." With that, she turned around and left. Yi Xian glanced at the third young lady and followed her. On the way, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Third young lady, as far as I know, this Dao scripture martial art is the origin of all the martial arts in the myriad world. Then what was this Dao scripture martial art before? Or could it be that before the Dao scriptures and martial arts, there wasn't any martial arts civilization?" The third young lady remained silent. Yi Xian asked again, "Can't you tell me? I still don't know." "Dao." Third young lady said softly, "Of course I know." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Can you tell me about it?" The third young lady glanced at Yi Xian and said, "If you want to know about the civilization before the Dao scripture civilization, then you must first understand the history of our universe. Our universe, conservatively estimated, should have existed for hundreds of trillions of years. But the Dao scripture martial art civilization is only 360,000 years old." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression became solemn. The third young lady said again, "Compared to this universe, humans are really insignificant. We also know very little about the history of this universe. For example, how it was formed, how humans were born. We know nothing. Before the Dao scripture martial arts civilization, the martial arts civilization of this universe was very, very backward. The people of that era were still in the body refining stage and didn't know how to cultivate qi. The lifespan of humans was basically less than 100 years. Yi Xian frowned slightly. "So backward." The third young lady nodded. "Very backward. But the spiritual qi in that era was very rich, at least 1,000 times richer than it is now. because the people of that era didn't cultivate qi. Spiritual qi was basically useless to them. Master called that era the primitive era. Whether it was the spiritual civilization or the martial arts civilization, they were the most primitive. After Master appeared, he created a new cultivation method, which was qi cultivation. Absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to strengthen oneself, change oneself, break through oneself. It was also from Master's era that people became more and more powerful, so powerful that they could destroy the world. Xian suddenly asked, "Did the ancestors of the Dao sects teach themselves?" The third young lady nodded slightly. "Learn and explore by yourself." Xian said softly, "Amazing. Creating a new path wasn't something an ordinary person could do." The third young lady said, "After Master appeared, the cultivation method he created completely changed our universe. However, it also brought a disaster to this universe. Because everyone cultivated, they absorbed spiritual qi without restraint, and even plundered the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. So many worlds were destroyed." Saying that, she glanced at Xian. "The model in the five-dimensional universe is very good. It protects the world, protects the spirit of heaven and earth, and forbids the wanton destruction of the strong. In this case, the universe can live longer." Xian said in a deep voice, "Third young lady, just now you said that the history of this universe is at least 100 trillion years, and the Dao scripture civilization only has a little more than 30 years. Before the Dao scripture civilization was the primitive era. What about before the primitive era?" The third young lady shook her head. "I don't know. Because the people of that era didn't even create words, so there was no record at all. However, Master once calculated that more than 10 million years before the primitive era, there might be an extremely powerful civilization in this universe." Xian hurried to ask, "What civilization?" The third young lady hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't know." After a moment of silence, Xian asked, "Why did the Dao sect's ancestor think that more than 10 million years before the primitive era, there was a powerful civilization in this world?" The third young lady looked at Xian. "In order to spread martial Dao, Master once traveled all over the world. He once encountered something unusual in the northern wilderness, but I don't know what it was. I only know that after he came back from there, the ancestral dragon that had been accompanying him all along died. Later, Master personally sealed the northern wilderness and no one was allowed to step into that place. These years the seal has loosened and I have entered several times, but I couldn't go deep. That place is indeed not simple." The northern wilderness. Xian was silent and he remembered this place in his heart. At this time, the third young lady stopped and turned to look at Xian. "The Dao scripture martial Dao civilization is only the origin of our universe's martial Dao civilization, but it is not the only martial Dao civilization." Xian smiled bitterly. "Third young lady, are you trying to tell me that there is a higher dimension world?" The third young lady asked. "Why not?" Xian frowned slightly. "Don't tell me there is really an 8th or 9th dimension?" The third young lady shook her head. "Do you think there is any difference between the 4th and 5th dimensions?" Xian thought for a moment and shook his head. "There is no difference, just that the martial Dao civilization of the 5th dimension is higher than that of the 4th dimension." Third young lady nodded. "Actually, no matter if it's 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, or 5-dimensional, or even the Saha world, everyone is in the same universe. It's just that someone separated each place and set up a cosmic barrier. That's why there's the so-called 4-dimensional and 5-dimensional distinction. In the end, everyone belongs to the same universe. It's just that the area is different." Xian suddenly asked, "Now what is the farthest known place in Dao sect?" The third young lady looked at Xian. "The Orc world." Xian frowned slightly. "The Orc world?" The third young lady nodded. "Another race that has existed since primitive times. They are actually also humans, but they are a race that is a combination of humans and demons. They can be said to be the natural enemy of the human race. If it was not for Master's sudden appearance, the human race would have been destroyed by them." Xian was a little surprised. "So strong?" The third young lady said softly, "Not just strong, they not only have the cultivation talent of the human race, but also the strong physical body of the orc race, especially in the aspect of physical body. Compared to the human race, they have a unique advantage, and those orcs who have cultivated their physical body to the extreme are even more terrifying." She looked at Xian as she spoke. Master created the Daoist physique based on the cultivation method of their threads. Xian said, "In other words, The orcs in the orc world are more advanced than us humans in terms of physical body. The third young lady nodded. Yes. Because their physical body has a unique advantage. Humans may need to cultivate for 20 to 30 years to cultivate a strong physical body, but on the orc side they may be born with it. Xian said softly, I understand. At this moment he finally had a rough understanding of this universe. The universe was very big. The martial arts civilization did not only consist of the Daoist scripture civilization. The Daoist scripture civilization was only the source of the martial arts civilization of this universe, but who knew if there were other universes? The third young lady said again, if young Master Yi wants to know more about the history of this universe, you can go to the northern wilderness, but that place is a bit dangerous. Young Master Yi better not go now. Otherwise you won't be able to return. Xian was speechless. At this moment the third young lady stopped in her tracks. She glanced at her surroundings and said, Young Master Yi, this is the place where I usually cultivate. The space here is unusually firm, so young Master Yi can cultivate Fate Fist here. However, I have to remind you that cultivating Fate Fist is playing with your life. Because you have to burn your lifespan in the beginning. Xian was speechless. P.S. I found that everyone has been guessing the identity of that woman recently. I also read the book comments but no one guessed correctly. Chapter 1476. Burning one's lifespan. Xian was speechless. This life fist was really risking one's life. Third Miss smiled and said, however, if you succeed in cultivating it, you will feel that burning your lifespan is worth it. However, in my opinion, young Master Ye's lifespan is at most 1,000 years. That's too little. I'm afraid it's not enough for young Master Yi to successfully cultivate this fist. So, Xian suddenly said, let's try it first. Third Miss glanced at Xian and nodded, then let's try it first. Saying that, she sat cross-legged on the ground and said, young Master Yi, sit down first. Let me tell you about the origin of this life fist and its special characteristics. Xian nodded and sat cross-legged opposite to Third Mississippi. Third young lady said, this life fist was created by Master by chance. Originally, he didn't want to incorporate this fist into the martial arts scripture because this fist was too harmful to the harmony of the heavens and its power was too great. Ordinary people couldn't control it. However, after seeing me cultivate this fist, he changed his mind. Xian blinked. Why? Third Miss looked at Xian. Because I can control this life fist. Xian was speechless. Third Miss continued. This life fist burns one's lifespan as the price. It can be said to be an unconventional sword, and because of this unconventional sword, the requirements for the cultivator are extremely harsh. First is the body, because its power is too powerful, ordinary people can't bear its power. If an ordinary person cultivates it, once they use it, they may directly explode and die. Therefore, the cultivator must at least have a Dao body of the consolidation realm. Only a Dao body of the consolidation realm can bear its power. Second is the soul. In the process of cultivating this fist, the cultivator will have to endure unbearable pain. The soul must be strong enough, otherwise the soul may be destroyed while cultivating. Xian blinked. The soul will be destroyed? The third young lady nodded. This fist intent surpasses the limits of ordinary people. Moreover, the power obtained from this fist is unconventional. Therefore there are many drawbacks. As she spoke, she looked at Xian. Your physical body is strong enough. As for your divine soul, it shouldn't be too big of a problem. The only problem is his lifespan. His lifespan is a little short, but his comprehension isn't bad, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Xian nodded. Then let's begin. Third young lady said, now I will teach you some of my experience in practicing life fist. Should be helpful. With that, she pointed with her fingers, and a white light directly entered the space between Xian's eyebrows. Xian slowly closed his eyes. Soon, countless pieces of information flowed into his mind. About an hour later, Xian began to circulate the 9th volume of Dao scripture and began to practice the life fist. The moment he activated the 9th manual, a faint flame suddenly appeared around him, burning his lifespan. Needless to say, the price of practicing life fist was too high. Burning his lifespan. What was the ultimate goal of ordinary people's cultivation? It was to prolong their lifespan. But this life fist directly burned one's lifespan. However, Xian had no choice but to practice. His top priority now was to do everything possible to improve his strength. Without great strength, everything else was nonsense. The sacred ground. The sacred lord came to the bamboo house in the back of the mountain. In the garden, a woman was slowly watering the plants. The woman was still wearing that dark green dress. The sacred lord walked to the side of the garden and bowed respectfully. Master, I received news. Zhou Xian is practicing in the Dao sect and has now cultivated his physical body to the consolidation realm. Not only that, he is also practicing the Dao sect's supreme martial art, Life Fist. The woman nodded. Got it. The sacred lord hesitated, then said, Aren't we going to stop him? The woman smiled. Why should we stop him? The sacred lord said in a deep voice. He is getting stronger and stronger. The woman smiled. I know. The sacred lord wanted to say something but stopped. The woman glanced at the sacred lord. Even if his physical body and realm have reached the god realm, he is not a threat to me. Do you understand? The sacred lord shook his head. No. The woman smiled. Whether he lives or not doesn't depend on him. Whether I die or not doesn't depend on him. This is a game between me and the person behind him. The sacred lord said softly, The woman in the plain dress? The woman nodded. The only people who can kill me and dare to kill me are this woman and her father. Can be said that I only have one chance. If I can't kill him in one strike, I won't have a second chance. Now the only thing that can hold them back is the calamity cause. Her father is far enough away from here. If I make a move, he will not be able to help. Of course, the woman in the plain dress is not near here either. However, if I make a move and kill him, I will die too. A life for a life, that was my idea in the past. Now, I don't want a life for a life because I think it will be too easy for him. So, I want a life for a few more. The sacred lord glanced at the woman, his eyes filled with fear. He knew that the master before him might be doing something crazy. The woman suddenly stopped and sighed softly. There's nothing I can do. As long as I want to kill him, no matter what I do, I will definitely die in the end. However, it doesn't matter. The sacred lord said in a low voice, Master, is there no chance of survival? The woman shook her head. There is no chance of survival. The sacred lord hesitated for a moment and said, Then why not give up? The woman smiled. There are some things that must be done even if it means death. As she spoke, she glanced at the sacred lord. Don't worry too much. I will give you a way out later. Once Zhou Xian dies, the woman in the plain dress will definitely go mad, and the entire universe will tremble under her sword. Moreover, no one can stop her, not even those two men, because they can't stop a mandate of heaven that has lost its mind. However, there is a place that she will not make a move, and that is the place where her brother died. Only by going there can she survive. The sacred lord said in a trembling voice, Master, is that woman really invincible? The woman nodded and smiled. She is. If it wasn't for the disaster cause, I wouldn't have a chance at all. Even with the disaster cause, as long as I touch Zhou Xian, I will definitely die. However, I am prepared to die. The sacred lord still wanted to say something, but the woman waved her hand. You may leave. The sacred lord did not dare to say anything else. He bowed respectfully and left. The woman put down the tools in her hand and walked slowly into the bamboo house. There was only a bed, a bamboo table and a bamboo chair in the bamboo house. The woman walked to the bamboo table and sat down. She picked up the teapot and poured herself a cup of tea. However, she did not drink it and fell silent. After a long time, the woman raised the teacup and said softly, I don't blame him. However, he must die. After saying that, she picked up the teacup and drank it in one gulp. Then she stood up and left the bamboo house. After walking out of the bamboo house, she gently drew a line with her finger and the space in front of her split open. In the next moment she entered the split space. The desolate north. Very few people knew about the northern wilderness because it was a true forbidden area. Even godly state experts did not dare to step into this place easily. There were two reasons why this place was called a forbidden area. First, this place itself was extremely special. Second, there was a restriction set up by the Dao sect's patriarch. Over the years, countless people had entered this place in search of opportunities. However, only a few could come out alive. Even if they did, it was because they did not go deep. On this day, a woman came to the northern wilderness. It was the mysterious woman from the sacred ground. The mysterious woman slowly walked toward the northern wilderness. When she walked to a river, an invisible force suddenly blocked her way. The mysterious woman waved her lily-white hand and the invisible force instantly disappeared without a trace. The mysterious woman continued to move forward. Not long after, a mysterious force suddenly enveloped her body. The mysterious woman smiled slightly. The Great Path Law. As she spoke, she waved her right hand and the mysterious force instantly disappeared without a trace. The mysterious woman continued to move forward. Soon she arrived in front of a tall building with 12 floors. The woman raised her head and looked at the tall building. In the middle of the building there were 3 big black words. White Jade Jing. The woman walked toward the entrance. When she approached the White Jade Jing, a mysterious force suddenly blocked her way. At the same time, a shadow appeared in front of the mysterious woman. The shadow looked at the woman. Trespasser, die. The woman suddenly grabbed with her right hand. The next moment, the shadow's throat was directly grabbed by the woman. He did not even have the strength to fight back. The woman looked at the shadow and smiled. I'm not one of those nobodies. As she spoke, she clenched her fist. Boom. That illusory figure turned into nothingness. At that moment the White Jade Jing suddenly trembled. The mysterious woman smiled slightly and gently stomped her right foot. Boom. The entire White Jade Jing shook violently and cracks appeared everywhere. At the same time the White Jade Jing calmed down. The mysterious woman looked at the White Jade Jing and shook her head with a smile. Is this the prehistoric civilization? As soon as she spoke, she turned around and left. At that moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the top floor of the White Jade Jing. Who is it? The mysterious woman stopped in her tracks. The next moment she turned around and punched. Boom. The White Jade Jing suddenly crumbled and turned into fragments that scattered all over the sky. The moment the White Jade Jing was destroyed, countless souls floated out of it. The mysterious woman waved her right hand and collected the souls. At that moment, a ferocious voice suddenly sounded from the sky. Who is it? Why don't you dare show your true face? From his perspective he could only see a blurry figure. He could not see the mysterious woman's true face. The mysterious woman looked up at the sky and smiled. These souls are very useful to my nephew Zhou Xian, so I'm taking them with me. It's an honor for prehistoric people like you to be absorbed by my nephew. As soon as she spoke, she turned around and left. In the sky, the ferocious voice sounded. Zhou Xian. The mysterious woman did not leave. Instead she continued to go deeper. Along the way she was unscrupulous and killed everything she passed. However, she did not kill all of them. Instead she would say, my nephew Zhou Xian. Chapter 1477. Following the mysterious woman's crazy massacre, the entire northern wilderness wailed. But soon the mysterious woman escaped. Because she seemed to be injured. This made the mysterious forces in the northern wilderness heave a sigh of relief. This woman did not seem to be invincible. However, they still could not do anything to her and could only watch her escape. Following the mysterious woman's escape, the entire northern wilderness returned to peace. But not long after, the northern wilderness became lively again as if they were discussing something. It was worth mentioning that not only did the mysterious woman forcibly take away some of the sleeping souls here, but she also took away countless mysterious treasures. They were all the family properties of those forces. This was simply robbery. A blatant robbery. For a moment the northern wilderness was filled with anger and murderous intent. Daoist. In the cultivation place, Zhou Xian stood quietly with a faint flame burning around him. Burning his lifespan. He was now burning his lifespan to obtain great power. After burning his lifespan, he found that he had indeed obtained a mysterious and powerful power. The power of lifespan. This power was not cultivated but burned. One had to admit that this was indeed an unconventional move. However, this power was really strong. Zhou Xian slowly clenched his right hand and the space within tens of thousands of feet around him became illusory. The power in his right hand was still becoming stronger as he burned his lifespan. The third young lady watched quietly in front of Zhou Xian. She was actually very curious about Zhou Xian because even if the Dao sect tried their best, they could not find out Zhou Xian's true identity. In this universe, there were really not many people that the Dao sect could not find out. Most importantly, this guy seemed to have a huge force behind him and the Dao sect knew nothing about this huge force. Too mysterious. At this moment Zhou Xian suddenly opened his eyes. The clothes on his right arm instantly turned into ashes. Blue veins bulged on his entire right arm, and it was filled with an extremely violent power. The power of lifespan. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Third young lady, I feel that I can't control this power anymore. Third young lady looked at Yi Xian. You must learn to control it. Yi Xian quickly asked, how do I control it? Third lady said, don't burn your lifespan yet. Yi Xian nodded and quickly stopped burning his lifespan. Although he had stopped burning his lifespan, the power in his body was still somewhat difficult to control. He even felt like his body was about to explode, because he was too strong. Moreover, he felt as if his body was about to collapse. Not only was his physical body on the verge of collapse, but his soul was also on the verge of collapse. At this time, the third young lady suddenly said, although this power is strong, you must know that it is yours. It was obtained by burning your lifespan, and your lifespan is also yours, so you can try to communicate with it. Yi Xian blinked. Communicate? The third young lady nodded. Feel it, fuse with it, and make it a part of your body. Only then will you be able to control it completely. With that, she paused and continued. The reason why many people in Taoism cannot cultivate this life fist is because they have not found a suitable way to control it. Yi Xian nodded. I will try. With that, he slowly closed his eyes and calmed his mind. Feel that power. Gradually, Yi Xian found that although this power was violent and overbearing, it was a little dependent on his body. No, it should be said that it was a little close to his body. Any power without the support of the body would be like a duckweed without roots. And this power was created by him, so naturally it was most dependent on him. As long as he used the right method, he could easily control this power. Yi Xian began to try to fuse with this power. At first it was a little difficult, but slowly he found that this power was not so resistant to him. Feeling this, Yi Xian was delighted. There's hope. About 3 days later, Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly stood up. He clenched his right hand, and in an instant the surrounding space became transparent. On top of his fist, there was a faint blood-red flame. Life fist. Yi Xian looked at his fist, his eyes full of excitement. At this moment he felt boundless power. At this time the third young lady suddenly smiled. Are you satisfied? Yi Xian looked at the third young lady. The third young lady smiled and said, your life fist is just a beginner, and its power is not even 1/10 of the real life fist. Not only that, when you burned your lifespan you only burned 50 years. If you burn for a few hundred years, you will find out what power is. Yi Xian was a little curious. What if I burn for 1,000 years? The third young lady smiled and said, your current body can't take it. With your current body, you can at most burn 200 years of lifespan, and 200 years of lifespan is enough for you to obtain power far beyond your realm. Yi Xian was a little curious. How powerful is it exactly? He wanted to try, but the price was too high. 200 years of lifespan was not enough to try. He couldn't afford to try. The third young lady thought for a moment and said, if you burn 200 years of lifespan, your power should be able to kill a god state expert easily. Very, very easily. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, what is above the god state? The third young lady smiled and said, that's not for you to worry about. What you should worry about now is the problem of lifespan. You have to know that you have less than 800 years of lifespan left. Don't think it's a lot. If you use life fist a few more times it will be gone. Moreover, your body and soul are not particularly strong. If you use it a few more times, not only will your lifespan not be able to bear it, even your soul and body will not be able to bear it. So, you need to find a way to improve your body and soul again. Yi Xian looked at the third young lady, and the third young lady quickly said, don't look at me. Your divine soul and physical body have already reached your limits. It will be extremely difficult for you to improve any further. I can't help you. Yi Xian was a little curious. Third young lady, what is your body realm? The third young lady said, God's state. Yi Xian quickly asked, how did you reach God's state? The third young lady looked at Yi Xian and raised a finger. I spent 100 years to reach God's state. 100 years. Yi Xian was petrified on the spot. The third young lady smiled and said, you can also reach God's state if you take your time. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. I also want to, but I'm afraid my enemy will not give me 100 years. The third young lady spread her hands. Then I can't help you. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian cupped his fists. No matter what, third young lady, thank you. The third young lady nodded. Are you going back now? Yi Xian nodded. There are still some things waiting for me to deal with in the fifth dimension. I have to go back and see if I can improve my soul and body. The third young lady nodded slightly. Your soul may be able to improve, but your body will not be able to improve in a short period of time. Unless you have a fortuitous encounter, but it is also very difficult. Yi Xian nodded slightly. His body had just broken through to consolidation realm, and if he wanted to break through again, as the third young lady said, without a special fortuitous encounter, it would be basically impossible. In this world, there was basically no beast blood more powerful than the ancestral dragon blood. Even if there was, he was afraid he would not be able to defeat it. At this time, the third young lady suddenly said, I still have something to deal with. I will leave first. If you need anything or if there is anything you do not understand, you can also come to my Dao sect. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Thank you. The third young lady nodded slightly, turned around and left. Yi Xian suddenly said, Third young lady. The third young lady turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. You said I have a powerful enemy. Can you tell me? The third young lady thought for a moment, then shook her head. Young Master Yi, I am sorry, my Dao sect does not want to get involved in this mess anymore. Whether it is you or the other party, my Dao sect cannot afford to offend you. I just want my Dao sect to develop steadily. After saying that, she turned around and left. In the same place, Yi Xian was silent. Who is it that wants to mess with me behind the scenes? Without thinking much, Yi Xian turned around and left. Somewhere, the third young lady looked at Yi Xian's departing figure, whispering, I hope we will meet again. After saying that, she turned around and left, but after taking 2 steps, her eyes suddenly narrowed, her right hand suddenly clenched, and a powerful force condensed in her right hand. A laugh sounded from behind the third young lady. Miss, you can't beat me. The third young lady said softly, Your Excellency, can't you let my Dao sect go? The voice laughed. You know he is the person I want to kill, but you still want to help him. You want him to become stronger and then cause trouble for me, right? The third young lady shook her head. I just want to settle the grudge between my Dao sect and him, that's all. The voice was silent. The third young lady slowly closed her eyes, and the force in her right hand became stronger and stronger. The atmosphere became more and more tense. At this moment, the voice suddenly laughed. Forget it. Your master is a respectable person after all, so I won't be so ruthless in this matter. Miss, don't play such tricks in the future. Because you don't have a second chance, understand? The third young lady nodded. Boss is right. I will remember it. The voice laughed. What a smart girl. You are much smarter than that Dao sect's second young master. Take care. After saying that, the third young lady in the distance suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. She turned around, but there was no one in front of her. The other party had left. The third young lady looked at the horizon and softly said, Young Master Yi, I mourn for you. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian was flying on his sword, returning to the fifth dimension. It had been a while since he came out. Although the threat of the Dao sect was gone, there were still many things in the fifth dimension that he needed to deal with. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. Not far in front of him stood a woman. The woman wore a dark green dress on which there were mountains and rivers, and she looked very quiet and elegant. Yi Xian's expression became solemn, because the other party appeared without a sound. The woman smiled. Don't be nervous, I am a good person. Yi Xian looked at the woman. That's what bad people usually say. The woman laughed. You are right. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Who are you? The woman thought for a while, then said, You should call me Aunt. As she said that, the corner of her mouth slightly raised, the kissing kind. Yi Xian. Peace, I'm late. Let me tell you slowly. It was dusk and I passed by a dark alley. In the alley there were a few people in revealing clothes. These people waved at me. Out of curiosity I walked over and then... Chapter 1478. Me. Dear. Yi Xian was confused. The woman smiled. It's normal that you don't know me. This is the first time we've met. Yi Xian looked at the woman. Are you really my auntie? The woman nodded. Yes. Yi Xian asked. How do you prove it? The woman smiled. I really don't know. Yi Xian looked at the woman in silence. The woman thought for a while. But you can ask me some questions. I think I should be able to answer them. Yi Xian asked. Who is Qing'er? The woman smiled. Her name is Tianming. She comes from the three-dimensional universe. Moreover, the current woman in a plain dress wasn't her true body. Of course, her current strength had already far surpassed her previous body. Besides her, there is also that woman in white. Her name is Tuesday. She used to be the owner of the executing heaven sword. She is also Qing one of the 4 doppelgangers. Xian said in a deep voice, "Where are the other 2? The woman said softly, "The other 2 were killed by Qing a long time ago." Xian frowned. "Why?" The woman looked at Xian. "Because the 2 Qing obstructed her, so she killed them." Xian was curious. "What obstructed Qing?" The woman smiled. "Because Qing wanted to defy the heavens and change her fate. But the prerequisite was to destroy the Tao. So she chose to destroy all living beings. The other 2 tried to stop her, so she killed them." Xian was silent. The woman gently brushed her hair behind her ear. "What else do you want to ask?" Xian looked at the woman. "Who is my father?" The woman smiled. "It's not convenient for me to tell you. You will know in the future." Xian asked again. "What about my mother?" The woman smiled. "Mother is not an ordinary person, very extraordinary. In fact, there's another bloodline in my body, but it hasn't been activated yet." Xian frowned. "There's another bloodline?" The woman nodded. "Yes. It was a very powerful bloodline. However, that ability had yet to be awakened. Moreover, the current crazy demon bloodline is too overbearing. It directly suppresses that bloodline, so it can't awaken." Xian said solemnly, "I have 2 bloodlines." The woman said with a smile, "Yes. Moreover, the other bloodline is also very strong. Of course, in terms of power, it can't compare to the crazy demon bloodline. However, the other bloodline is a little special. Its function is not to increase strength." Xian was a little curious. "Is that a support type?" The woman nodded. "You can say so." Xian asked in a deep voice, "Is it powerful?" The woman smiled and said, "Definitely powerful." Xian asked, "How do I activate it?" The woman blinked. "Do you want to activate it?" Xian nodded. The woman smiled and said, "I'll help." With that, she walked in front of Xian. Xian's right hand slowly clenched, his heart secretly on guard. The woman shook her head and smiled. "Don't be on guard against me. If I want to kill you, can't stop me. Even if you burn 1,000 years of your lifespan to use that life fist, you're still not my opponent." Xian looked straight at the woman. "How do you know that I practice life fist?" The woman smiled and said, "Because I've been secretly observing." Xian asked, "Observing me for what?" The woman blinked. "As an aunt, what's wrong with observing my nephew?" Xian was silent. The woman smiled and said, "Do you want to activate your bloodline?" Xian was still silent. The woman shook her head and smiled. "It seems that you still don't believe me. In that case, you can use your life fist to hit me." Xian looked at the woman. "Then I won't be polite." With that, he suddenly swung his sword. Instant kill sword. He had cultivated this instant kill sword to the limit. Even if he didn't use the supreme sword, its speed and power had reached the limit. Moreover, he was so close to this woman. Even if this woman was a peak god realm expert, she would absolutely not be able to block this sword. However, Xian was stunned. Because his sword was clamped by 2 fingers. The woman's fingers. The woman clamped Xian's sword and said with a smile, "A very fast sword. Unfortunately, this speed is still not a threat to me." With that, she loosened her fingers. Xian was silent. He knew that this woman's strength far exceeded his. Just like what she said, if she wanted to kill him, he couldn't resist at all. The woman smiled and said, "Now do you believe me?" Xian looked at the woman. "Why are you looking for me?" The woman blinked her eyes. "Someone asked me to help you because you're too weak now. So weak, you won't be able to resist the calamity cause in the future." Xian was stunned and then said, "Someone asked you to help me?" The woman nodded. "Yes." Xian asked, "Who is it?" The woman smiled and said, "Someone I know very well. As for who it is, I won't tell you. In any case, I'm here to help." Xian glanced at the woman. "How?" The woman sized up Xian and said, "First, I have to help you activate the power of your bloodline and activate the power of another bloodline. Secondly, your soul is slightly weak, so I can help you improve it and bring it to a new height." Xian was slightly surprised. "You can help me improve my soul?" The woman nodded. "Yes." Xian hesitated for a moment and asked, Really? The woman smiled and said, "What's in it for me to lie to you?" Xian fell silent. He didn't know if this woman was his aunt, but an expert like her wouldn't joke with him, right? Moreover, she knew Qing and the others so well, so she was obviously from the three-dimensional universe. The woman suddenly said, "I'll activate your bloodline first. Of course, if you really don't believe me, then you don't have to activate it. I'm busy anyway." Xian looked at the woman. "Will the two bloodlines conflict with each other if I activate the other bloodline?" The woman smiled and said, "Conflict or not, it depends on you." Xian frowned slightly. "Depends on me?" The woman nodded. "Remember, whether it's the crazy demon bloodline or the other bloodline, it's their master, not the other way around. Understand?" Xian said solemnly, "I understand." The woman smiled and said, "Can we start now?" Xian hesitated and said, "Are you really my mother's sister?" The woman nodded, "Yes." Xian looked straight at the woman. "In other words, you have the same bloodline as me, right?" The woman smiled slightly, "Yes." Xian smiled and said, "Can you show me?" The woman laughed. "Little fellow, you're really cautious, but it's a good thing." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and in the next moment, an emerald light suddenly appeared around her body. Not only that, but Xian also noticed that the blood vessels on her right hand had suddenly bulged. Those were emerald green blood vessels. Xian was slightly curious. "What bloodline is this?" The woman blinked. "Immortal bloodline." Xian frowned slightly. "Immortal bloodline?" The woman smiled and said, "Immortal bloodline. Once activated, it possesses extremely terrifying self-healing abilities. If cultivated to the extreme, so long as it's not erased in a single move, then no matter how serious the injury is, it can be healed. Even if the physical body is shattered, this bloodline can automatically restore the physical body. Not only the physical body, but even if the soul is shattered, it can instantly reform. Simply put, so long as it's not directly erased by the opponent, then it won't die." Xian was stunned, and then he said, "It's that terrifying?" The woman nodded and smiled. "It's that terrifying. It can be said that after this bloodline is activated, there are very, very few people in this world who can kill it besides those true almighty experts. Or perhaps it's even difficult to die." Xian spoke in a low voice. "What kind of almighty experts are you talking about?" The woman pointed at herself. "For example, my kind." Xian was speechless. The woman continued, "There's also the Qing kind. No bloodline is of any use when she slashes down with her sword, because she can sever everything with a single slash of her sword, and she can truly erase a person." Xian nodded. "I understand." As he spoke, he looked at the woman. "Help me activate my bloodline." The woman smiled and said, "All right." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm and pressed it lightly on Xian's shoulder. Bang! In an instant, Xian's body trembled violently, and then the blood in his body suddenly started trembling violently. The crazy demonic bloodline was resisting. The woman smiled slightly. "I have to suppress the crazy demonic bloodline first. I have to cooperate and don't resist, otherwise, it won't let the other bloodline awaken." As she spoke, she gently exerted force with her right hand. Bang! In an instant, the crazy demonic bloodline in Xian's body was directly suppressed by a powerful force. Sensing this scene, Xian's expression became solemn. This woman's strength was so terrifying. She could actually suppress the crazy demonic bloodline so easily. At this moment, the woman smiled and gently raised her right hand. Bang! Xian's eyes widened. At this moment, he felt as if something was about to come out of his body. Gradually, some dark green light appeared around his body. Immortal bloodline. And Xian found that the blood in his body gradually began to turn emerald green. His blood was changing. Xian slowly closed his eyes, and at this moment he felt like he was floating. Because the power of the bloodline was a little comfortable. The crazy demonic bloodline was very powerful, but it could not be controlled. Moreover, people would go crazy, and that kind of feeling was really not good. But this bloodline was different. This bloodline gave him a very comfortable feeling. Gradually, the blood in Xian's body slowly transformed. And during this process, Xian did not feel any discomfort. After a long time, Xian seemed to have thought of something. He looked at the woman. "Just now, you said that you can help me improve my soul?" The woman nodded. "Yes." Xian was a little curious. How do you improve it? The woman smiled. Using souls to supplement souls. Xian frowned slightly. Using souls to supplement souls? The woman nodded. Not long ago I picked up a batch of powerful souls. After absorbing them I should be able to break through the limit of my soul. And when I leave I will also leave behind a fortune, enough to help change the entire five-dimensional universe. Xian blinked his eyes. Fortune? The woman smiled. No matter what, you are my nephew, I will definitely treat you well. Chapter 1479. Xian glanced at the woman. He was now certain that this woman was related to his mother. Because his new bloodline power was the same as this woman's bloodline power. Moreover, the other party could know so many things. Was the other party really here to help him? His intuition told him that things might not be so simple. But he couldn't tell what was wrong. At this time the mysterious woman smiled slightly. Don't think too much, feel the bloodline. Xian nodded and slowly closed his eyes. At this moment his whole body was warm and very comfortable. He had to admit that he was a little excited at this moment. If this immortal bloodline was really so abnormal, then with his Daoist physique who could kill him? Moreover, he also had the ancestral dragon's scale. Once the scale was forged into a treasured armor, it could be said that his physical body would be extremely tough. Even if he stood there and let a consolidation realm expert slash at him, the opponent would not be able to kill him. Thinking of this, Xian looked forward to it even more. With the help of the woman, the mad demon bloodline in his body had been completely suppressed, and the new bloodline was slowly taking over his body. After the bloodline had been dormant for more than 20 years, it was even happier than Xian himself when it regained its freedom. About half an hour later the woman withdrew her hand. She retreated to the side and said with a smile, "It's done." Xian opened his eyes and clenched his fists. In an instant the blood in his body quickly flowed from his body, and an emerald light appeared around him. It was very comfortable. Xian looked at the woman. My bloodline activation was successful? The woman nodded. Yes. Xian hesitated for a moment, then asked, Then what about my crazy demon bloodline? The woman said with a smile, The crazy demon bloodline did not disappear, but it was temporarily suppressed by me. In the future when you need to use it, it will naturally appear, but under normal circumstances it won't be used, right? Xian nodded. That's true. The woman continued. Actually, the two bloodlines can coexist, but I'm afraid it's a little difficult to control right now, so I can only separate them and slowly try to control them in the future. It will be very interesting if the two bloodlines can coexist because the undying bloodline can make up for the flaws of the mad demon bloodline. Xian nodded. I understand. The mad demon bloodline was equivalent to self-mutilation, but the undying bloodline could restore the body. Meanwhile, the woman spoke abruptly, We'll slowly comprehend the bloodline energy in the future. Let me help you improve your divine soul. As she spoke, she opened her palm and a white jade bottle appeared in her hand. Xian was a little curious. This is. The woman smiled and said, Soul body. A very powerful soul body. A soul body. Xian glanced at it and soon, his expression became unprecedentedly solemn. There were at least tens of thousands of souls inside. These souls were at least at the peak of the immortal state, and many of them might have surpassed the immortal state. Xian looked at the woman in shock. These are? The woman smiled faintly. They were all bad people and I killed them. And I've erased all their memories and now they're a great tonic for you. After absorbing these souls, your divine soul should reach a very terrifying level. Xian looked at the white jade bottle and did not speak. The woman smiled. Are you worried? Xian looked at the woman. These souls are too powerful. The woman laughed. If they're not powerful, it's useless to absorb them. Xian was silent. The woman smiled. It seems that you still think I'll harm you. Really, I'm in critical condition. If I make a move now, other than my Qing, no one will be able to save him. You should know that I'm not lying, right? Xian was still silent. The woman shook her head and smiled. Little guy, I said so much because you're my nephew. If you want to become stronger, it's not impossible to ignore these souls. I won't force you. With that she put away the white jade bottle. Xian suddenly asked, Where is my mother now? The woman smiled. A very far place. Xian asked, How far? The woman thought for a moment and said, I don't know, but it's very far. Father is the same. Many people are helping to fight against the cause of calamity. With that, she raised the white jade bottle in her hand. Do you want it or not? The souls of over 10,000 super experts can not only make my divine soul stronger, it can also make my soul subduing sword achieve a qualitative change. Yi Xian smiled. Yes. The woman passed the white jade bottle to Yi Xian. Yi Xian took the white jade bottle, but he did not absorb it immediately. The woman blinked. If you absorb it now, I can help you improve. Yi Xian smiled. There's no hurry, Auntie. Didn't you say that you have some treasures for me? The woman smiled. Of course. With that, she took out a spatial ring and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at the mustard seed ring. Soon his expression turned serious. The woman smiled. Moved? Yi Xian looked at the woman and nodded. The treasures in the spatial ring were enough to change the entire fifth dimension. They could make the fifth dimension reach an unprecedented level. The woman looked around. I should also go. Take care of yourself. Yi Xian looked at the woman. Where are you going? The woman smiled. A very far place. We'll meet again in the future. With that, she turned and left. Under Yi Xian's gaze, the woman disappeared into the horizon. In the same place, Yi Xian looked at the white jade bottle and the spatial ring in his hand. At this time, Yi Jiming suddenly said, You don't believe this woman? Yi Xian nodded. Yi Jiming was a little confused. Why? Yi Xian said softly, One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. My soul is not strong enough, and then someone immediately came to give me powerful souls for me to absorb. My fifth dimension wants to develop, and then someone came to give me so many treasures that can change the entire fifth dimension. Is this a coincidence? Maybe it is, but I can't be too cautious. If someone dug a hole for me, wouldn't it be a pain in the ass? Yi Jiming said in a low voice. Do you think she is little aunt? Yi Xian looked at his body, then said, She has the same bloodline as me, so it should be true. However, her appearance is a little suspicious. As he spoke, he looked at the white jade bottle and storage ring in front of him. I can tell at a glance that these powerful souls are not simple, and with these treasures, I think she might have gone to rob a powerful force. Anyway, I have to be more careful. When the time comes, I will go to the Nether Palace and ask that big ant if she knows this little ant. If she does, then she is really one of us. That would be for the best. If he doesn't. At this point, he did not continue. Yi Jiming also fell silent. Neither of them wanted to think about the worst. At this time, Yi Xian said, I will go to the Nether Palace now. With that, he was about to leave, but at this moment, the white jade bottle in his hand suddenly shattered, and the next moment, countless souls rushed into his forehead like a tide. Boom! Yi Xian's body trembled violently, and a powerful soul aura swept out from his body, causing the space around him to tremble like an earthquake. It's over. This was the thought in Yi Xian's mind at this moment. The other party actually used force. This was definitely a trap. Damn it! Is this woman really my little aunt? On the other side, the mysterious woman looked at Yi Xian in the distance, a faint smile on her face. What a cautious guy, I actually failed to trick him. However, this karma, I have to accept it even if I don't want to. Not far away, Yi Xian was madly absorbing those souls, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. If he did not absorb those souls, they would burst his body. He had to absorb them. Not only did he have to absorb them himself, but he also had to use the soul-suppressing sword to help him. Because those souls were too powerful. Just like this, after about 4 hours, the soul aura around Yi Xian finally calmed down, and beside him, the soul-suppressing sword trembled violently, emitting a powerful soul aura that could really destroy the world. The soul-suppressing sword had broken through and reached an unprecedented level of strength. Even Yi Xian did not know what level it had reached. In any case, there was only one word to describe it: powerful. And his own divine soul was also unprecedentedly strong. After his divine soul became stronger, he realized that with a thought, his divine sense could cover a radius of millions of miles, and he could even clearly sense an ant within millions of miles. At this moment, he felt that the whole world had become clear. This feeling was too wonderful. But soon Yi Xian's face darkened. Why did that woman do this? Moreover, he had the same bloodline as her, which meant that she might really be his little aunt. Since she was his little aunt, why would she do this? Dig a hole for him? Yi Xian was silent. Although his divine soul had greatly improved, he could not feel happy at all. Because his intuition told him that this was not a good thing. At this moment Yi Jiming suddenly said, "But if that woman really wanted to die, she could have just killed him. Why would she dig a hole for him?" Yi Xian shook his head. "That's what I'm confused about." Yi Jiming said solemnly, "Do you want to use the treasures in the storage ring?" Yi Xian looked at the storage ring and said softly, "I do. I've already absorbed these souls anyway. If there's bad karma, even if I don't use this storage ring, I'm afraid it's useless." Saying so, he looked at the horizon. "Go back." Then he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the horizon. In the clouds, the woman looked at Yi Xian in the distance with a complicated look in her eyes. So similar. P.S. Did anyone force me to have a monthly ticket?